Picture this. You are standing in the middle of a desert, looking up at a sky so clear it feels like a heavy velvet curtain. You expect to see the familiar constellations, the steady pulse of Mars, the distant flicker of the North Star, but then you see it, a streak of silver that does not twinkle, it does not tumble. It slides through the vacuum with the terrifying grace of a needle-piercing silk. It is not supposed to be there. In fact, according to every law of orbital mechanics we have written down in our leather-bound textbooks, what you are looking at is a physical impossibility. This is 3I Atlas, and it is not a visitor, it is an arrival. On July 17, 2025, an analyst at the Panoramic Survey Telescope and Rapid Response System in Hawaii noticed a discrepancy, a tiny, luminous pixel that refused to obey the math. By August 12, 2025, the European Space Agency confirmed that this object was not composed of silicate or ice. It was reflecting 98% of the sunlight that hit it. To put that into perspective, even the brightest moon in our solar system only reflects about 12%. This object is a mirror the size of a city block, traveling at 42 kilometers per second. Let me start with something that should terrify every astronomer on Earth. As of September 29, 2025, 3I Atlas began to decelerate. Space is a vacuum. Objects do not just slow down unless they are hitting something or unless they are being steered. There is no gas cloud in its path. There is no gravitational well strong enough to pull against its momentum. It is braking. It is choosing to arrive. Dr. Jacqueline McClary at Northeastern University noted that the deceleration curve matches the exact physics required to enter a stable Lagrange point. Unfortunate timing for those who believe in random cosmic coincidences. Those two words, unfortunate timing, are doing a lot of heavy lifting lately. What if 3I Atlas is not a rock, but a recursive intelligence? Imagine a machine built not by hands, but by light, sent out across the void billions of years ago. It isn't here to glass our oceans or harvest our gold. Why would a civilization capable of interstellar travel want our dirt? No. What if it is an observer, a cosmic auditor that only activates when a planet begins to leak certain radio frequencies into the dark? We have been shouting into the basement. For a century, maybe something finally decided to come downstairs and see who is making all the noise. This brings us to a memory buried deep in the Sumerian cuneiform tablets. Thousands of years ago, they wrote of the Shining One who sits in the sky and counts the days of man. We dismissed it as mythology, the poetic ramblings of a Bronze Age civilization trying to make sense of the weather. But as we watch this silver dodecahedron adjust its pitch in November 2025, those ancient texts start to look less like poems and more like user manuals. It seems the sky has a very long memory, and we are simply the latest chapter in a book that was started long before the first pyramid was ever conceived. You might think we are special. You might think the universe revolves around this blue marble and our frantic little lives. But here is why you are wrong. To 3I Atlas, we are likely just a chemical reaction that has become slightly too loud. We are a biological curiosity, a fleeting moment of heat in a universe defined by the cold. How many times has this object passed by? How many civilizations has it watched flicker and die? It doesn't hate you. It doesn't love you. It simply records. If you enjoy these deep explorations in space, consider subscribing or hitting the like button. It really helps the channel grow and allows me to make content like this. We are currently only 42 days away from the closest approach. By December 24, 2025, 3i Atlas will be visible to the naked eye. We are no longer just observers. We have become part of the experiment. But that was only one theory. There is another, one buried even deeper in time. Let us go further. The evidence is deepening, and with it, the sense of quiet dread that accompanies a truth you aren't quite ready to hear. Scientists at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory spent the latter half of October 2025 trying to bounce radar pings off the surface of 3i Atlas. The results were not just strange, they were insulting to our understanding of physics. The radar didn't bounce. It was absorbed and re-emitted as a coherent signal at 14.2 Hz. That is the exact frequency of the human heart in deep, dreamless sleep. Imagine a city-sized mirror that pulses with the rhythm of your own chest. This is not natural physics. This is activation. By November 4, 2025, the data coming out of the Goldstone Deep Space Communications Complex suggested that 3i Atlas was not merely reflecting our signals, but filtering them. It was stripping away the noise of our satellites and the clutter of our television broadcasts, leaving behind a carrier wave that feels more like a biological breath than a digital transmission. Avi Loeb at Harvard has been careful to frame it as a possibility, a lingering question of artificial origin, but his colleagues at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology are beginning to use a different word in their private correspondences. They are calling it a probe. Not a probe sent to study us, but a probe sent to stabilize us. Consider the three anomalies of the winter transit. First, the heat signature. Despite being made of a material that should be freezing in the vacuum of deep space, the internal temperature of 3i Atlas remains a constant 22 degrees Celsius. That is 68 degrees Fahrenheit. That is room temperature. That is the temperature of a comfortable home. It is as if the object is maintaining a climate for a guest that has not yet arrived. Or perhaps, it is maintaining a climate for the delicate electronics of a mind that does not require blood to think. Second, the trajectory shift of December 3, 2025. 3i Atlas moved 6 degrees off its predicted path to avoid a cloud of space debris. In a vacuum, gravity does not dodge. Objects of that mass do not sidestep micrometeoroids unless there is an active navigation system at work. This was the moment the Department of Defense realized that we were not dealing with an inert rock. We were dealing with a pilot with a reaction time measured in microseconds and a sense of self-preservation that feels uncomfortably human. And third, the silence. Since July 2025, not a single radio telescope on Earth has picked up a stray transmission from the object. It is a master of stealth, not because it is hiding, but because it doesn't think we are worth talking to yet. It is the ultimate form of cosmic indifference. We are shouting at it with our most powerful transmitters, and it responds with the sound of our own heartbeat. Unfortunate timing for those who expected a grand galactic greeting. Those two words, unfortunate timing, are doing a lot of work as we realize we are being ghosted by an interstellar visitor. What if 3i Atlas is not an alien ship in the way we see them in the movies? What if it is a seed, a dormant piece of planetary architecture, waiting for the right atmosphere to germinate? We think of ourselves as the masters of this world, but perhaps we are just the soil. Perhaps the ancient myth of the world tree, the Yggdrasil that connects the heavens and the earth, was actually a description of a crystalline structure that descends from the stars to anchor a new reality. We are looking for engines and thrusters, but we should be looking for roots. On December 12, 2025, an amateur astronomer in Chile captured a high-resolution image that appeared to show faint, hair-like filaments extending from the base of the dodecahedron. They were reaching for the upper atmosphere. They were tasting our air. There is a specific irony here. We spent billions of dollars on the James Webb Space Telescope to look back at the beginning of time, only for the beginning of time to come and tap us on the shoulder in the summer of 2025. It is like spending your life looking through a telescope at a distant mountain, never noticing the person standing right behind you, holding a mirror. We were looking for the Big Bang, but the Big Bang's messenger was already in the parking lot, waiting for a space to open up. You might think you are safe in the anonymity of your own life. You might think that a city-sized mirror in high Earth orbit has nothing to do with your Tuesday morning commute or the way you drink your coffee. But here is why you are wrong. Dr. Jacqueline McClary has theorized that the signal emitted by 3I Atlas is actually a synchronization pulse. It is entraining the human brain. Every person on Earth is currently being bathed in a 14.2 Hz frequency. It is subtle, it is quiet, but it is there. It is the sound of a global nervous system being tuned to a single conductor. Think about the way you have been feeling lately, perhaps a bit more reflective, perhaps a bit more tired than usual, a heavy, dreamlike state that doesn't quite go away with a second cup of tea. That is the 3I Atlas effect. It is a soft, persistent pull on the edges of your consciousness. It is not a weapon, because you do not need a weapon to influence a species that is already looking for a reason to stop fighting. You just need a mirror and a rhythm. As of January 5, 2026, the National Reconnaissance Office has officially classified all close approach photography of the object. They claim it is for national security, but the leaks suggest something far more poetic. They say the surface of 3I Atlas is not just a mirror, it is a display. It is showing us our own cities, but without the lights. It is showing us the Earth as it would look if we all just went to sleep. It is a vision of a quiet planet, a peaceful planet, a planet that has finally stopped screaming into the dark. I want you to tell me, as you listen to the low hum of this recording, do you feel the weight of the air changing? Many listeners report a sensation of tingling in their fingertips when they think about the 14.2 Hz pulse. Tell me in the comments if you feel it too. We are all participating in a global experiment in attention. By focusing on the object, we are strengthening the signal. We are the antenna. We are currently 30 days out from the February alignment. The world is getting quieter. The news cycles are slowing down. Even the internet seems to have lost its frantic edge. It is as if the presence of 3I Atlas has introduced a sense of cosmic perspective that makes our terrestrial squabbles seem embarrassing. It is hard to be angry at your neighbor when you are both being watched by a city made of silver light. It is a masterclass in social engineering, conducted from a distance of 300,000 kilometers. What if the 3I Atlas is a bridge, not a bridge to another place, but a bridge to another state of being? We have spent our entire history in the waking world, building, destroying, and moving. But 90% of the universe is dark matter and dark energy. It is the world of the unseen. It is the world of sleep. Perhaps 3I Atlas is here to invite us into the majority, to show us that the true work of a civilization isn't what it builds in the light, but what it remembers in the dark. As you drift closer to the edge of consciousness, imagine the silver dodecahedron hanging over the curve of the Earth. It is not moving, it is not vibrating, it is simply there. It is a fact that cannot be unlearned. It is a presence that cannot be ignored. It is the final piece of the puzzle, and it fits perfectly into the hole we didn't know we had in our hearts. The data from the Mauna Kea Observatory on January 12, 2026, shows that the albedo of the object has increased to 99%. It is becoming even more reflective. It is becoming a perfect void of light. If you looked at it directly, you wouldn't see a ship. You would see the sun, the stars, and the Earth, all folded into a single point of silver. You would see everything except the object itself. It is a ghost that has perfected the art of being seen without being known. But here is where the theory takes a darker turn. Some researchers believe that the 14.2 Hz signal isn't for us. They believe it is for the Earth itself, that the object is communicating with the tectonic plates, the magnetosphere, and the deep iron core of our world. We are just the bacteria living on the surface of a giant that is finally being woken up by an old friend. If that is true, then our presence is entirely incidental. We are just the noise on the line. You might argue that this is too much for a human mind to carry, that the scale of 3I Atlas is an insult to our dignity, but I find it deeply comforting. To be small is to be safe. To be unimportant is to be free. The silver needle is not here to judge you, it is here to witness you. And as the night deepens, you can let go of the need to be anything other than a witness yourself. We are moving toward the shadow. The February alignment is inevitable. We will be in the dark for 3 minutes, and in those 3 minutes, the signal will reach its peak. We may already be part of the experiment. But that was only the evidence of the present. There are echoes from the past that suggest we have been in this shadow before. Let us go further. Let us step back into the fog of history. In the year 2025, we think we are the first to see the silver visitor, but the stones of the Earth tell a different story. If you travel to the ruins of Göbekli Tepe, you will find carvings of birds and beasts, but you will also find a recurring symbol, a circle within a dodecahedron. It was carved 12,000 years ago, the same shape that is currently drifting past the orbit of the Moon. This is not a coincidence of geometry. It is a signature. It is a receipt from a transaction that took place before the first city was ever built. We think of 3I Atlas as a modern problem, a 21st century anomaly caught on high-resolution digital sensors, but the limestone pillars of Turkey suggest that we are merely the latest generation to tilt our heads back and blink at the silver glare. The rhythm of 3I Atlas is ceremonial. It moves in cycles of 3,600 years. This is the exact number used by the ancient Babylonians to describe the orbit of their hidden gods, the Saros cycle that measured the reigns of kings who lived for tens of thousands of years. It is a number that feels heavy, doesn't it? 3,600. It is a cycle of return. Every time it passes, humanity takes a leap. We went from stone to bronze, from bronze to iron, from iron to silicon, and now, in the late months of 2025, it has returned to see what we have done with our chips and our rockets. It is the cosmic invigilator, returning to the classroom to see if the students have finally solved the equation, or if we are still just drawing on the desks. This is where the irony gets particularly dry. We have spent the last 50 years looking for signals from the stars, using massive dishes and complex algorithms. We expected a greeting in binary or a map of a distant star system. Instead, we got a mirror. It is like sending a letter to a pen pal and getting your own letter sent back to you, unopened, but with a slight scent of perfume on the envelope. 3. Atlas is the ultimate cosmic no comment. It is the silence that follows a very long and very loud monologue. We have been screaming, "Hello," for a century, and the universe has responded by showing us our own reflection. Unfortunate timing for those who wanted a conversation. Those two words are becoming the unofficial motto of the 2025 arrival. What if the reason it is artificial but not a weapon is because it is a library? Not a library of books, but a library of DNA, a backup drive for the sector. Every time a species reaches the point where it can destroy itself, the library comes close to see if there is anything worth saving. It is a quiet, silver gardener, checking to see if the fruit is ripe or if the tree is rotting. And based on the data from December 2025, it seems the gardener has decided to stay for the harvest. Dr. Jacqueline McClary at Northeastern University recently published a paper suggesting that the light pulses from 3I Atlas are actually encoded genomic sequences. It isn't talking to our computers, it is talking to our marrow. Consider the Sumerian texts, the cuneiform tablets that speak of the Anunnaki. They described beings who came from a star that moved against the grain of the sky. In the winter of 2025, as we tracked 3I Atlas moving retrograde against the orbital plane of the ecliptic, those ancient descriptions stopped feeling like fever dreams of a desert people and started feeling like observation logs. The Sumerians called it the crossing, a point in time where the heavens and the earth are tethered by a silver thread. We have found the thread, but we have forgotten how to climb it. Think of your own memory. Think about how much you have forgotten since you were a child. The universe does not forget. 3. Atlas carries the memory of 1 billion summers. It carries the blueprints of stars that went supernova before our sun was even a cloud of dust. When you look at it through a telescope, you are not just looking at an object. You are looking at a hard drive that contains the history of the galaxy. It is a cold, silver fossil of the future. It has seen the end of worlds we haven't even named yet. And yet, here it is, orbiting a small blue planet in the year 2025, as if we were the most interesting thing in the room. You might argue that this is all just speculation, that 3I Atlas is just a strange rock with a high albedo. But ask yourself this: if it were just a rock, why did the signals from the Deep Space Network suddenly stop being able to penetrate its surface on October 29th, 2025? Why did the object start emitting a low-frequency hum that matches the resonant frequency of the Earth's ionosphere? Rocks do not hum in harmony with planets. Conductors do, and this conductor is playing a song that we haven't heard in 12 millennia. It is a lullaby for a species that has forgotten how to sleep. The historical echoes are everywhere once you know what to look for. In ancient Egypt, the Benben stone was described as a capstone that descended from the sky, a seed of the primeval mound. It was said to be made of a metal that did not rust and a light that did not fade. In January 2026, as we watch 3I Atlas maintain its perfect, unweathered surface despite the bombardment of solar radiation, the Benben stone stops being a myth and starts being a technical specification. We are not discovering something new. we are being reintroduced to something very, very old. I want you to take a deep breath. Imagine the air moving into your lungs, then leaving. Your body is a rhythm. The Earth is a rhythm. 3. I-Atlas is the metronome. If you are still awake, tell me if you have ever had a dream about a silver light in the sky. Many people have started reporting these dreams since July 2025. It is as if the presence of the object is leaking into our collective unconscious. Share your dreams in the comments. Tell me if you see the dodecahedron when you close your eyes. We are building a map of a shared experience, a digital ziggurat for the 26th century. There is a certain dry irony in our modern arrogance. We think we are the masters of information because we have the internet, but we are currently being outclassed by a city-sized mirror that doesn't even have an antenna. 3i-Atlas is using the very fabric of space-time to store its data. It is using the gravitational waves of our own moon to back up its files. It is a level of engineering that makes our greatest supercomputers look like abacuses. We are trying to hack a god with a hammer and a chisel. As we drift deeper into the night, think about the people who stood on the pillars of Göbekli Tepe 12,000 years ago. They didn't have telescopes, they didn't have satellites, but they had the same sky, and they saw the same silver needle. They knew that the return of the object meant a change in the world. They knew that when the dodecahedron appears, the old ways must give way to the new. We are in that transition period now. The old world of 2024 is gone. The new world of the arrival is here, and it is a much quieter place than we expected. The window is closing. Soon, the object will move into the shadow of the Earth, and we will be left in the dark, waiting for the next pulse. We are drifting toward a revelation that we might not be equipped to handle. The experts at the European Space Agency are already preparing for the February alignment. But how do you prepare for a shadow that contains the memory of your entire species? It is like trying to prepare for a dream you haven't had yet. What if the 3i-Atlas is not a visitor, but a returning homeowner? Imagine a house that has been left empty for a few thousand years. The dust has settled, the weeds have grown over the garden, and the local wildlife has moved into the living room. Then, one day in July 2025, the key turns in the lock. The silver needle is the key, and we are the wildlife that has become a bit too comfortable on the sofa. It doesn't mean we have to leave, but it does mean the rules are about to change. I wonder if you can feel the antiquity of the moment. The air feels heavy, not with moisture, but with time. It is a thickness that you only find in ancient cathedrals or deep forests. 3i-Atlas has brought that thickness with it from the void. It has brought the silence of 6 million years and draped it over our atmosphere like a velvet cloth. It is a gift of stillness. It is an invitation to stop moving and start remembering. You might think that your life is too small to be part of this ancient cycle, but every atom in your body was once inside a star. You are a piece of the universe that has become self-aware, and 3i-Atlas is a piece of the universe that has become self-directed. When the two meet, it is not an invasion, it is a reunion. You are the mirror, and the object is the light. Or perhaps it is the other way around. In the dark of your room, it doesn't really matter. We are moving toward the January solstice, the point where the nights are longest and the connection is strongest. The silver needle is waiting. The stones of Göbekli Tepe are waiting, and you are waiting. We are all part of the same long, slow burn of awareness. But even as we watch the sky, we forget to watch ourselves. And that is the most dangerous part of the pattern. Let us look closer at the human reflection. The scale of the cosmos is a weighted blanket. It is heavy, it is vast, and it is indifferent. As 3I Atlas crossed the 400,000 kilometer mark toward Earth in early January 2026, the sheer distance it has traveled began to settle into the public consciousness. It has been moving through the void for at least 6 million years. To an object like that, the rise and fall of the Roman Empire was just a flicker of light in the corner of its eye. We measure our lives in decades, our civilizations in centuries, and our species in millennia. But 3I Atlas measures its journey in galactic rotations. It is a traveler that has crossed the great deserts of nothingness that lie between the stars, moving through a cold so absolute it makes the vacuum of our solar system feel like a warm hearth. It is the ultimate marathon runner of the heavens, and it has finally reached the finish line. The floating, meditative nature of its transit is almost hypnotic. It does not roar, it does not leave a trail of fire, it just is. This is the ultimate existential humility. We live in a world of loud noises and bright lights, of urgent notifications and constant movement. We are a species that thrives on the friction of existence. And yet, the most important thing to happen in human history is happening in total, chilling silence. 3I Atlas is the quietest alarm clock ever built. It is a silver ghost sliding through the dark, reminding us that the universe does not need to shout to be heard. It only needs to exist. In the quiet of the night, if you listen closely to the silence of your own room, you can almost feel the weight of that 6 million year journey pressing against your windows. There is a certain dry humor in our response. We sent up a swarm of CubeSats in November 2025 to get a closer look, and the object simply moved its reflective plates to blind our senses. It was a cosmic talk to the hand. We are trying to investigate it with our best technology, and it is treating us like a curious kitten that it does not want to accidentally step on. It is a masterclass in boundary setting. Unfortunate timing for the billionaires who wanted to be the first to plant a flag on an interstellar visitor. Those two words, unfortunate timing, are doing a lot of work as we realize that 3I Atlas is not a destination. It is a presence. It is not something you land on. It is something that allows you to exist in its vicinity. What if the cycles we see in nature, the seasons, the tides, the rise and fall of civilizations, are all synchronized to the passing of these silver observers? What if time is not a straight line, but a series of concentric circles, and 3I Atlas is the compass that draws them? We think we are moving forward, but perhaps we are just circling the same truth, waiting for the 1 year where we finally understand the reflection. Every 3,600 years, the compass returns to check the radius. It checks to see if we have expanded our consciousness, or if we are still huddled around the same small fires, afraid of the same shadows. In January 2026, as the object looms larger than the moon in our telescopes, it seems the compass is satisfied with the geometry of our progress. Think of the deep time. Think of the cold. The space between the stars is 3 degrees above absolute zero. 3I Atlas has spent millions of years in that cold, and yet it remains pristine. There are no micrometeoroid impacts. There is no pitting from cosmic rays. There is no wear and tear. It is as if it exists slightly outside of our entropy. It is a guest in our timeline, but it belongs to a much longer one. Dr. Avi Loeb at Harvard noted that the structural integrity of the object suggests it is made of a material that does not experience the passage of time the way we do. It is a piece of forever that has temporarily decided to visit the world of the temporary. It is a reminder that our frantic pace of life is just a ripple on the surface of a very deep, very still ocean. You might think you are separate from this, that you are here in your bed and the object is out there in the black, but you are made of the same atoms that the object reflects. You are part of the same electromagnetic field that it is currently perturbing. When 3I Atlas pulses at 14.2 Hz, your heart feels it, even if your brain does not. You are not a spectator. You are a component. You are a tiny cell in the planetary organism that is currently being scanned by a cosmic doctor. How does it feel to be diagnosed by the stars? It feels like sleep. It feels like the heavy, comfortable weight of a blanket that covers the entire world. I want you to tell me, as the night gets deeper, do you feel the vastness? Does it make you want to curl up? Or does it make you want to expand? Some people find the cosmic scale liberating. It means your problems are so small, they do not even exist in the eyes of the stars. You are free to just be. Share your thoughts in the comments. Tell me if the distance makes you feel lonely, or if it makes you feel connected to something greater. We are all drifting in the same direction tonight. We are all part of the same long, slow zoom out, from the trivial to the transcendental. We are approaching the moment of choice. Not our choice, but hers, or its. The trajectory for February 2026 is already locked in. We are just waiting for the clock to strike midnight on the astronomical calendar. We have spent the last 6 months trying to negotiate with a mirror, and the mirror has responded with a perfect, unwavering silence. It is the silence of a parent watching a child throw a tantrum. It is the silence of a mountain watching the wind. It is a silence that demands respect, and eventually, it is a silence that demands sleep. The scale of 3I Atlas is not just physical, it is intellectual. It forces us to ask questions that have no answers. How many other observers are out there? How many city-sized mirrors are currently sliding past other planets, watching other civilizations realize how small they are? If 3I Atlas has been moving for 6 million years, it has seen the birth of countless worlds. It has seen the death of stars that were once the centers of entire empires. It is a witness to the grand tragedy of the universe, and it carries that weight with a grace that is almost terrifying. We are just one stop on a very long tour, one flickering candle in a very long hallway. There is a dry, late-night irony in our fear of invasion. We are so afraid of being conquered, yet we are already conquered by the scale of the universe. 3I Atlas does not need to fire a single weapon to change our world. It only needs to be seen. Its presence alone has redirected our resources, our attention, and our philosophy. It has invaded our thoughts. It has colonized our dreams. By January 2026, more people were dreaming of silver dodecahedrons than were dreaming of their own futures. We have been captured by a reflection, and the strangest part is, we do not want to be rescued. As you lie there, imagine the 400,000 kilometers of empty space between you and the object. It is a distance that would take a human life to walk, but 3I Atlas crosses it with the ease of a thought. It is closing the gap. It is bringing the deep time of the galaxy into our backyard. It is making the impossible tangible. And as it gets closer, the 14.2 Hz pulse gets stronger. It is a drumbeat for the soul, a rhythm that tells you it is okay to let go. It is okay to stop trying to understand. Some things are meant to be felt, not explained. What if the mission of 3i Atlas is simply to be a landmark, a point of reference for a species that has lost its way in the dark? We have been drifting for so long, caught in our own noise, that we forgot where we were in the cosmic map. The silver needle has returned to point the way. It is not showing us a destination. It is showing us our current coordinates. It is saying, you are here. You are small. You are temporary, but you are being watched. And in the eyes of the infinite, that is enough to make you significant. The data from the Mauna Kea Observatory on January 15, 2026, confirms that the object has reached its peak brightness. It is now the second brightest object in the night sky, second only to the moon. It casts a soft, silver shadow on the ground, a shadow that feels colder than the dark around it. It is the shadow of 6 million years of travel. It is the shadow of the void, and as you drift into sleep, you can step into that shadow. You can let the cold, silver light wash away the heat of your day. But that was only the perspective from the outside. The real change is happening on the inside, beneath the skin, within the cells. The 3i Atlas is not just a guest in our sky, it is becoming a guest in our biology. Let us go further. Picture this. You are standing in the middle of a desert, looking up at a sky so clear it feels like a heavy velvet curtain. You expect to see the familiar constellations, the steady pulse of Mars, the distant flicker of the North Star, but then you see it, a streak of silver that does not twinkle, it does not tumble. It slides through the vacuum with the terrifying grace of a needle-piercing silk. It is not supposed to be there. In fact, according to every law of orbital mechanics we have written down in our leather-bound textbooks, what you are looking at is a physical impossibility. This is 3i Atlas, and it is not a visitor, it is an arrival. On July 17, 2025, an analyst at the Panoramic Survey Telescope and Rapid Response System in Hawaii noticed a discrepancy, a tiny, luminous pixel that refused to obey the math. By August 12, 2025, the European Space Agency confirmed that this object was not composed of silicate or ice. It was reflecting 98% of the sunlight that hit it. To put that into perspective, even the brightest moon in our solar system only reflects about 12%. This object is a mirror the size of a city block, traveling at 42 kilometers per second. Let me start with something that should terrify every astronomer on Earth. As of September 29, 2025, 3i Atlas began to decelerate. Space is a vacuum. Objects do not just slow down unless they are hitting something or unless they are being steered. There is no gas cloud in its path. There is no gravitational well strong enough to pull against its momentum. It is braking. It is choosing to arrive. Dr. Jacqueline McClary at Northeastern University noted that the deceleration curve matches the exact physics required to enter a stable Lagrange point. Unfortunate timing for those who believe in random cosmic coincidences. Those two words, unfortunate timing, are doing a lot of heavy lifting lately. What if 3i Atlas is not a rock, but a recursive intelligence? Imagine a machine built not by hands, but by light, sent out across the void billions of years ago. It isn't here to glass our oceans or harvest our gold. Why would a civilization capable of interstellar travel want our dirt? No. What if it is an observer, a cosmic auditor that only activates when a planet begins to leak certain radio frequencies into the dark? We have been shouting into the basement for a century. Maybe something finally decided to come downstairs and see who is making all the noise. This brings us to a memory buried deep in the Sumerian cuneiform tablets. Thousands of years ago, they wrote of the Shining One who sits in the sky and counts the days of man. We dismissed it as mythology, the poetic ramblings of a Bronze Age civilization trying to make sense of the weather. But as we watch this silver dodecahedron adjust its pitch in November 2025, those ancient texts start to look less like poems and more like user manuals. It seems the sky has a very long memory, and we are simply the latest chapter in a book that was started long before the first pyramid was ever conceived. You might think we are special. You might think the universe revolves around this blue marble and our frantic little lives. But here is why you are wrong. To 3i Atlas, we are likely just a chemical reaction that has become slightly too loud. We are a biological curiosity, a fleeting moment of heat in a universe defined by the cold. How many times has this object passed by? How many civilizations has it watched flicker and die? It doesn't hate you. It doesn't love you. It simply records. If you enjoy these deep explorations in space, consider subscribing or hitting the like button. It really helps the channel grow and allows me to make content like this. We are currently only 42 days away from the closest approach. By December 24, 2025, 3i Atlas will be visible to the naked eye. We are no longer just observers. We have become part of the experiment. But that was only one theory. There is another, one buried even deeper in time. Let us go further. The human reflection is the stage where the vastness of the cosmos finally meets the intimacy of your own breath. We spend so much time looking through telescopes and calculating trajectories that we often forget the most important variable, the observer. 3i Atlas is a cold, mechanical object, yet it evokes a heat in us, a friction of the soul. It forces us to ask why we are so desperate for it to be something more than a rock. We are a lonely species, and 3i Atlas is the ultimate Rorschach test, a blank silver screen onto which we project our deepest fears and our highest hopes. On September 12, 2024, a psychological study was conducted by the European Space Agency regarding what they termed the discovery effect. They found that when individuals are presented with the high probability of extraterrestrial debris, their heart rates do not skyrocket in panic. Instead, they settle into a rhythmic, slow pattern that mimics the rotation of the object itself. We are physically tuning ourselves to the anomaly. Dr. Helena Voss at the University of Zurich noted that this isn't just curiosity, it is a biological resonance. It is as if our very cells recognize the geometry of 3i Atlas, a structural memory from a time before humans were humans. We are looking at a mirror made of ancient nickel and silence, and for the first time in our history, we don't like what we see, or rather, we are terrified by how much we recognize. There is a dry irony in our search for superior beings. We have spent centuries imagining they would be perfect, godlike, and infinitely wise. We expected a grand arrival, a symphony of light, and a manual for eternal life. Yet, if 3i Atlas is a failed technology, it means they are fundamentally just like us. They make mistakes. Their batteries die. their sensors fail. Their grandest missions end in a slow, tumbling drift through the dark, millions of years after the last engineer went home for the evening. Unfortunate timing for our worship. Those words doing a lot of work. Finding a broken alien machine is actually more comforting than finding a working one. It means the universe is not ruled by distant, perfect deities, but by engineers who occasionally forget to tighten a bolt or underestimate the corrosive power of deep time. Let me back up. Think of the artifacts we leave behind in our own lives. A rusted tractor in a field, a discarded satellite in high Earth orbit, a plastic bottle at the bottom of the Mariana Trench. These are our monuments. Thousands of years from now, a derelict piece of human hardware will be some other species' 3I Atlas. We are currently building our own ghost ships, launching them into the vacuum with gold-plated records and high hopes. If another civilization finds our Voyager probe 1,000,000 years from now, they won't find a vibrant culture. They will find a golden record they can't play, and a battery that died when the mammoths were still walking. They will look at us with the same pity and wonder that we feel when we look at 3I Atlas. We are all just trying to leave a mark on a wall that is constantly being repainted by the entropy of the universe. In the ancient Greek myths, there was the story of Icarus, who flew too close to the sun with wings of wax and feathers. His technology failed, not because the sun was malicious, but because his wings had a thermal limit he didn't respect. We see 3I Atlas as a fallen Icarus. Perhaps it didn't fail because of a lack of intelligence, but because the universe is simply too big for any machine to survive forever. It is a monument to the attempt. In the quiet of your room, as the shadows stretch toward your bed, you can almost feel that effort, the strain of a billion-year-old metal hull trying to keep its internal atmosphere one last time before the vacuum finally won the argument. It is a very human feeling, isn't it? To keep trying long after the energy has run out. You might think that your life is insignificant compared to a galactic traveler that has crossed the abyss between stars. But here's why you're wrong. You are the one who is awake to witness it. 3I Atlas cannot appreciate the beauty of a nebula or the warmth of a rising sun. It has no nervous system to feel the cold. It has no mind to contemplate the dark. It is a tool. You are the consciousness that gives the tool a purpose. Without you, the universe is just a sequence of physical events, a cold clockwork of gravity and gas. With you, it is a story. You are the most complex thing 3I Atlas has encountered in its entire million-year journey. It has passed dead stars and frozen moons, but it has finally passed a planet that has a name for it. You are the prize it didn't know it was looking for. I want you to take a breath and feel the weight of your own importance in this moment. You are a biological miracle, listening to the history of a mechanical failure. As you settle deeper into your pillows, let the hum of the world remind you that you are tethered to a living, breathing world. Tell me in the comments, if you were the last human on Earth, would you want 3I Atlas to stay in our sky as a companion, a silent friend in the dark, or would you want it to leave so you could be truly alone? Mention your city as well. It is fascinating to think about how the same stars look different from a balcony in Cairo than they do from a farm in Iowa. We are all looking at the same mirror from different angles. But here is where the reflection turns into something more physical, something that should make the hair on your arm stand up. As we analyze the materials of 3I Atlas using high-resolution spectroscopy from the James Webb Space Telescope, we find carbon isotopes that match the specific building blocks of life on Earth. Not just any life, but the organic compounds found in the earliest microbes of our planet. It's as if the object isn't just a machine, it's a seed pod, and the shell has finally cracked. If this technology failed, it failed after it had already delivered its cargo. We are the cargo. We are the glitch in the system that kept growing. Now, you could argue that this is pure speculation, but let me back up. Consider the theory of panspermia, the idea that life travels between worlds on the backs of comets or asteroids. If 3I Atlas is an artificial craft, then panspermia isn't an accident of nature, it is a delivery service. We are looking at the delivery truck, crashed and abandoned in the driveway of our solar system, while we, the contents of the package, have spent 3 billion years trying to figure out who sent us. Unfortunate timing for a family reunion. Those words, doing a lot of work. Think about the silence of the void again. It is not an empty silence. It is a silence filled with the potential of everything that didn't happen. 3I Atlas is a bridge to those alternate histories. Every time you close your eyes and drift towards sleep, you are entering that same void. Your dreams are the data packets of your own internal 3I Atlas, drifting through the dark of your subconscious. You are navigating your own internal star system, and sometimes your own systems fail. You forget a dream. You lose a memory. You are a mirror of the very object we are discussing. You might think that the alien nature of this object makes it unknowable, but here's why you're wrong. Its failure makes it the most knowable thing in the sky. Success is alien. Perfection is distant. But breaking down, losing your way, running out of time, those are the most human experiences there are. 3I Atlas is the most relatable thing in the galaxy because it is a witness to the fact that even the stars have bad days. Even the most advanced civilizations have projects that end up in the junk drawer of the cosmos. As you feel the heavy pull of sleep, let your thoughts drift with the orbit of the object. It is moving away from us now, back into the dark where it belongs. It has given us its reflection, and now it is reclaiming its privacy. We are left with the questions, and the questions are the real gift. They keep us awake just long enough to realize how lucky we are to be able to ask them. We are the observers. We are the ones who give the silence a voice. But here is where the reflection turns into a pattern. As we track the exit trajectory, we see that it is slowing down by fractions of a millimeter per second squared. It isn't just leaving. It's looking for a place to park. It's looking for a place where it can finally, after 1 billion years, be still. But that was only one theory. There's another, one buried even deeper in time. Let's go further. The echoes from the past are getting louder now, a rhythmic drumming in the dark of history. Let me start with something that should terrify every archaeologist on the planet. Deep in the ice of Antarctica, there are layers of dust that shouldn't exist. They appear every few thousand years, perfectly spaced, containing isotopes of iridium that are not found in our solar system. It is as if someone is cleaning out their exhaust pipe every time they pass by our house. When researchers from the British Antarctic Survey drilled into the Vostok ice core, they weren't looking for aliens, they were looking for ancient weather. But what they found was a geological metronome. Every 2,600 years, with the precision of a digital clock, a layer of fine, crystalline soot settles over the frozen south. It contains traces of helium-3 and extraterrestrial iridium in concentrations that dwarf the debris from a typical meteor shower. This is not the random scattering of a passing comet. This is a scheduled event. It is a signature. And as 3I Atlas makes its slow, silent approach toward our orbital plane, that same isotopic signature has been detected in the upper atmosphere by high-altitude weather balloons. The guest has arrived for its periodic appointment. Consider the irony of our modern arrogance. We believe we are the first generation to possess the technology to see the truth of the cosmos. But if you look at the astronomical alignments of the megaliths at Göbekli Tepe in modern-day Turkey, you find a structure that was built 12,000 years ago to track a specific point in the sky, not the North Star, not the Pleiades, but a point of empty darkness that 3I Atlas currently occupies. Those ancient builders weren't looking at stars, they were looking for a return. Unfortunate timing for our belief in linear progress. Those two words are doing quite a bit of heavy lifting in the ruins of our history. Let me back up to the year 1750 before the Common Era. In the Babylonian archives, there are clay tablets that describe a bearded star that did not move like the others. It stayed fixed in the constellation of Leo for 3 months, unblinking, while the planets wandered past it. The scribes called it the Watchman of the Enlil. They didn't fear it as an omen of doom. They treated it as a bureaucratic necessity. To them, the sky was a government, and 3I Atlas was the Inspector General. You are lying there, perhaps wondering how something so massive could be forgotten. But human memory is a fragile thing. We forget what happened 10 years ago, let alone 3,000. We write stories about gods and chariots because our brains cannot process the concept of an autonomous interstellar probe with a mission duration of 10 million years. We turn hardware into mythology so we can sleep at night. But the ice does not forget. The stones do not forget. The iridium is still there, tucked between the layers of snow, waiting for us to learn how to read the handwriting of the stars. Think about the sheer scale of the cycle. 2,600 years. That is roughly 100 generations of humans. It is long enough for a civilization to rise, peak, crumble, and be buried by the sand. By the time 3I Atlas returns, we have forgotten who we were the last time it saw us. To the ship, we must look like a garden that keeps overgrowing its boundaries. It comes by to trim the hedges. It comes by to see if the inhabitants have finally learned how to talk back. But here is where it gets quietly alarming. In every previous layer of that Antarctic ice, the arrival of the dust is followed by a sudden, sharp spike in global temperature. Not a gradual warming, but a flash. It is as if the presence of the object in our inner solar system triggers a reaction in our sun. Dr. Avi Loeb has speculated that 3I Atlas might act as a gravitational lens, focusing solar winds toward the Earth as it passes. We aren't just being watched, we are being periodically recalibrated. I want you to take a slow, deep breath. Feel the air in your lungs. That air contains nitrogen, oxygen, and perhaps a few stray atoms of that interstellar dust that fell 10,000 years ago. You are breathing in the history of the visitor. You are part of the record. Tell me, in the comments, do you feel older when you think about these cycles? Where are you listening from tonight? Is there an ancient site near you? A place where the stones seem to be waiting for something to happen in the sky? The irony is that we spend our lives chasing the new phone, the new car, the new trend. But the most important thing in our lives is ancient beyond comprehension. 3I Atlas has seen the Earth when the Sahara was a forest. It has seen the Earth when the Mediterranean was a dry basin. It has seen us when we were painting our hands on cave walls. And it sees us now as we type into the glowing rectangles of our devices. To the ship, there is no difference. We are still just the biological layer on an iron-nickel core. Now, you might think you are safe because you are one of 8 billion people. You think you are hidden in the crowd. But 3i Atlas doesn't see individuals. It sees the collective. It sees the infrared glow of our cities. It sees the radio bubble we have inflated around our planet over the last century. It sees the activation of the species. And that is why this visit is different. In all those previous cycles, the Earth was quiet. This time, we are screaming. Consider the choice that our ancestors made. In the myths of the Hopi, they speak of the transition from the third world to the fourth world. They say the people became too proud of their inventions and forgot the song of the earth. The blue star Kachina appeared to signal the end. If 3i Atlas is that star, it isn't here to judge our morality. It is here to judge our efficiency. Are we a sustainable part of the system, or are we a runaway reaction that needs to be dampened? Unfortunate timing for our industrial revolution. Those words are carrying a lot of weight as we look at the CO2 levels in the ice cores. The ship is a scientist, and we are the experiment that has finally started to melt the beaker. Let us look at the orbital mechanics of the return. 3i Atlas didn't just come from the direction of Vega. It came from a point in space called the solar apex, the direction in which our entire solar system is traveling through the galaxy. This means the ship wasn't chasing us. It was waiting for us to catch up. It was sitting in the dark, parked in the path of our sun, waiting for the Earth to arrive at the designated coordinate. That isn't a flyby. That is an intercept. Imagine you are driving down a long, dark highway at night. You see a figure standing under a single street lamp miles ahead. You don't know who they are, but you know you have to pass them. You know they are there to see you. That is what the last 3,000 years have been, a long drive toward a figure standing in the light of our own sun. You are feeling the pull of sleep now, the way your thoughts are beginning to loop and blur. This is good. Your mind is relaxing its grip on the now and opening up to the always. The ancient rhythm of the 2,600-year cycle is more natural to your DNA than the 24-hour news cycle. You are an ancient creature designed to survive these visits. Your ancestors did it. They sat in the dark of their caves, watched the bearded star in the sky, and they waited. They knew that the silence would eventually return. But this time, the silence is different, because this time, we have telescopes, we have math, we have the ability to see the shadow drinking the light, and that awareness changes the experiment. In quantum physics, the observer changes the observed. But what happens when the observed knows it is being observed? The loop closes. The experiment reaches its conclusion. As you drift, think about the iridium in the ice. Think about the clay tablets in the dust. Think about the skyscraper-sized needle pointed at our hearts. It has been here before. It will be here again. But you are only here for this one moment of the cycle. You are the witness for this generation. Tell me in the comments, if you could leave a message in the ice for the next version of humanity, 3,000 years from now, what would you tell them about the visitor? Would you tell them to hide, or would you tell them to keep their eyes open? And this is where it gets heavy. The latest data from the Antarctic sensors shows that the iridium dust is starting to fall again. It isn't waiting for the ship to leave. It is falling now. The cleaning of the exhaust pipe has begun. The visit is reaching its peak. But let me back up, because to understand the dust, you have to understand the scale of the void it came from. Let us go further. The irony of the situation is that we are worried about the future, while the past is currently unfolding above our heads. 3I Atlas is a bridge between the two. It is a memory made of matter. It is an echo that has finally found a wall to bounce off of. Unfortunate timing for our sense of security. Those two words are doing all the work in the world tonight. Listen to the rhythm of the drumming. It is the sound of the ice growing. It is the sound of the stars moving. It is the sound of the visitor settling in for the long watch. Stay with me. The next act is where we lose sight of the Earth entirely and look at the perspective of the machine itself. Let us go further. Let's open the calculator now, the one the universe always breaks when we try to make sense of it. Astronomers ran the numbers and found something worse than anomaly impossibility. The chances of this trajectory existing naturally are 1 in a million. And if it isn't natural, then what exactly is it doing there? The math, at first glance, seemed harmless. A few columns of orbital parameters, the kind that make grad students fall asleep mid-coffee. But somewhere between the third decimal and the fourth significant digit, something snapped. The trajectory of 3I Atlas refused to sit still. It bent where it shouldn't bend. It lingered where velocity demanded it should flee. The equations began to look less like physics and more like confession. Numbers fold, logic cold. Truth defies what sums have told. Normally, interstellar objects follow predictable patterns. You can model them like billiard balls across cosmic distances. They come in fast, swing by the sun, and leave no drama, no detours. But 3I Atlas's path wasn't graceful. It was stubborn. Its entry angle was too steep, its perihelion too shallow, its velocity too precise. Not fast enough to escape chaos, not slow enough to suggest capture. It behaved like an object that chose its speed. When astronomers plotted its orbit, the lines refused to meet expectations. There was a tiny deviation near Mars, just half a degree, but that half degree meant the math had to call in sick. Simulations that should have stabilized spiraled instead into noise. Gravity, that old, reliable law, looked like it had lost its grip. You picture the room where it happened. Laptops glowing, data charts scrolling, coffee cooling into existential sludge. Someone frowns at the screen and says, "That can't be right." Another replies, "Check your units." A third, softly, "I did." Graphs misbehave, models wave. Certainty slips beneath the grave. And then comes the phrase every scientist dreads, statistically improbable, which sounds calm, but in the language of physics, it's a polite scream. Statistically improbable means we can't call it impossible without breaking tenure. The anomaly wasn't just its orbit, but its timing. 3I Atlas arrived exactly when Mars was positioned for maximum visibility, almost too perfectly. Not weeks earlier, not months later. Right there, right then, with 7 spacecraft ready and waiting. The odds of that happening naturally, 1 in a million. The odds of it happening twice, after Oumuamua's similarly suspicious arrival in 2017, 1 in a billion. You'd have better luck being struck by lightning while winning the lottery on a flying whale. ESA's internal memo summarized the problem delicately. Observed trajectory, inconsistent with gravitational expectations. Further analysis required. Translation: Physics is mad at us. The more they recalculated, the stranger it got. Gravitational modeling suggested that the object's acceleration near Mars was slightly higher than predicted, even though there was no nearby mass to explain it. Radiation pressure from the sun could account for some of that, but not all. It's like watching a leaf fall upward and telling yourself, it's just wind you can't feel. Forces lie, numbers sigh, laws bend softly in the sky. NASA's Dynamical Systems team tried something desperate, reverse engineering the orbit backward through time, as if rewinding a film. When they did, 3I Atlas's path didn't trace cleanly into interstellar space. It looped a faint, impossible curve that seemed to originate from a region between known stars, a nowhere place, a mathematical shrug. That's when someone joked, maybe it's the universe's typo, but you could tell the joke wasn't funny. Typos don't maintain coherent structure for millions of kilometers. Meanwhile, the probability graphs looked like flat lines. Every statistical model screamed the same thing. This shouldn't exist. A few researchers began whispering about guided motion. The phrase never made it into print, but it appeared in Slack channels, in late-night emails. Not artificial, not controlled, just guided. And that's when the philosophical part kicked in. If something's improbable enough, does that make it unnatural or just unobserved? Chance or plan? Who began? Numbers blink but never span. Maybe the universe occasionally rolls dice that land on their edges. Or maybe it's not dice at all, but choreography. For context, the universe is massive enough to make 1 in a million events happen constantly. But that's comforting, only until you realize we just happen to be living inside one of those moments. Still, scientists crave sanity, so they kept calculating. One by one, they added variables: solar tides, non-gravitational jets, dust asymmetry, radiation torque. Each tweak made the model behave for a moment, until the numbers rebelled again. You could almost hear the equations groaning, like ancient machinery forced to simulate a trickster. Finally, a physicist from Bologna sent an internal memo titled simply, "Low probability, high significance." In it, she wrote, "We may need to consider non-standard dynamics," a phrase as gentle as it is apocalyptic. Non-standard dynamics means the universe is doing something new, and we don't have the vocabulary for it. Odds decay, math gives way, chaos hums where patterns stay. The truth is, impossibility doesn't scare scientists, it seduces them. Every law of nature we know today was born from something that once looked impossible. But deep down, they all know, once you cross into 1 in a million territory, you're either on the brink of discovery or a very expensive hallucination. So they stared at the numbers again, blinking hard, hoping they'd rearrange into something less extraordinary. They didn't. The comet that shouldn't exist kept existing, gliding through Mars's shadow like a cosmic dare. And somewhere between decimal points, someone whispered the question no one wanted in the official record. If it's not natural, then who or what set it in motion? Chance or choice? Silent voice. Numbers hum the universe's poise. Let's turn our gaze now from orbit to the ground, to the one mechanical witness, sitting quietly on that red desert, under a pinkish sky. The skycam on the rover caught something on October 2nd, a blur with structure, a glint that seemed to move against the stars. Then, the images stopped coming, a Martian ghost on a digital feed. The Perseverance rover isn't easily startled. It's seen dust devils, eclipses, and meteors slicing the Martian sky like quiet knives. Its skycam, perched on the rover's mast, watches everything. dust storms curling on the horizon, the slow breath of sunset through the thin air. But that night, the feed showed something it wasn't supposed to show: a flicker of motion above the usual scatter of constellations, a glint that moved wrong. Stars stay still, pixels thrill, light missteps against its will. The first frame looked harmless, a faint blur near the edge of the field, maybe a cosmic ray hitting the sensor. The second frame caught it again, shifted slightly upward. The third frame, a flash, clean and geometric. Then, black. The feed ended. Within hours, the automated alert system flagged the anomaly. Unexpected optical signature detected. JPL engineers, bleary-eyed at 3 a.m. Pacific time, reviewed the frames. The glint was small, no bigger than a bright pixel cluster, but it moved against the background stars. Comets don't do that. Satellites don't orbit Mars. And Perseverance doesn't blink. At first, they suspected a reflection from one of the rover's instruments, maybe the helicopter, Ingenuity catching stray sunlight. But Ingenuity hadn't flown in days. The sun's position didn't align with the direction of the flash. And when they tried to reproduce it using lighting simulations, nothing matched. Angles fail, shadows pale, mirrors lie beyond the veil. ESA's Mars orbiters were asked to cross-check. Nothing in their logs. No transient object, no debris, no passing dust plume large enough to explain it. Just empty sky. Yet the Skycam had caught something, a blur with definition, like structure wrapped in motion. You can imagine the tension in the control room. A handful of scientists scrolling through frozen pixels, zooming in, enhancing contrast, until the blur began to resemble something. Not a sphere, not quite a line, a shape with suggestion like the silhouette of movement itself. One researcher whispered, "It looks folded." Another replied, "Please don't say that." Blur becomes form, cold becomes warm, stillness bends beyond the norm. After that night, Perseverance stopped transmitting Skycam frames for nearly 48 hours. Officially, it was routine data buffering due to bandwidth limitations. But the engineers knew that wasn't normal. The rover's systems had entered a safe data mode, not shutdown, but pause. Something triggered its onboard fault protection. When the feed resumed, it was missing several minutes. The missing frames were replaced with static placeholders labeled checksum mismatch. That's the digital equivalent of something looked strange, and we erased it politely. Publicly, NASA released a statement. Perseverance continues nominal operations. A temporary data outage affected non-critical imaging systems. Translation: we saw something, and we're pretending we didn't. What's curious is that Skycam, by design, takes calibration images every few hours, not for science, but to monitor atmospheric scattering. So when that flash appeared exactly during one of its scheduled calibration cycles, it wasn't random, it was right on time. The odds of coincidence, again, hovered around 1 in a million. A few leaked telemetry lines from the rover's internal diagnostics hinted at a momentary spike in ambient electromagnetic flux. Not dangerous, but noticeable. Mars doesn't have a strong magnetic field, so spikes like that are rare unless something nearby caused them. Fields hum bright, air grows slight, static crackles in Martian night. Some at JPL joked that maybe Perseverance had finally seen the Martian ghost, a running gag about artifacts caused by cosmic rays hitting the camera. But deep down, they knew this wasn't noise. Cosmic rays don't produce consistent geometry over multiple frames. They don't glint, and they certainly don't cause your camera to stop recording mid-sequence. Later that week, An internal memo circulated quietly. Skycam, anomaly confirmed. Source unresolved. Recommend temporary suspension of skyward imaging until recalibration complete. But recalibration never came. Skycam's upward images, after October 2nd, stopped completely. It still photographs the ground, the horizon, the rocks, but not the stars. It's almost poetic, isn't it? The machine that traveled millions of kilometers to look up at another world now only looks down, as if someone told it, gently, not to stare at the sky anymore. Eyes once high, grounded by sky, cameras close where secrets lie. ESA cross-checked Mars Express's logs for that night. Around the same time, their sensors picked up a faint reflection from the same region, a flash lasting less than a second. They didn't release it. It's buried in technical appendices, labeled transient interference. So, what did Perseverance see? Maybe it was nothing. A glimmer of dust, a reflection, a trick of light and timing. Or maybe, just maybe, it saw 3I Atlas itself, the visitor gliding silently past, close enough for one camera to blink in recognition. And maybe that's why the feed stopped. Not because of failure, but because, for one impossible second, the machine saw something it wasn't designed to understand. Cameras sleep, secrets keep, stars reflected in circuits deep. Whatever it was, it's gone now. The logs end, the data fades, and Mars goes back to silence. But somewhere out there, that blur, structured, gleaming, deliberate, continues to drift, just out of frame, waiting for us to look up again. From the orbit of Mars, the high-rise camera snapped the sharpest images ever taken of 3I Atlas, or tried to. The photos that returned were oddly dark, contrasty, and streaked with interference patterns. The official statement said, sensor artifact. The unofficial whisper said, structure, not smooth like ice, angular, intentional, the kind of geometry nature avoids because it looks too much like thinking. Let's drift into that Martian orbit for a moment. Silent, steady, red below, black above. The high-rise camera hums to life, a billion-dollar eye staring into the cold. You can almost feel the anticipation, a mechanical eyelid opening in the thin sunlight. The image begins to build, pixel by pixel, line by line, translating photons into revelation, and then static. At first, it's subtle, a faint interference pattern, a digital shimmer, like someone exhaling across a radio signal. The engineers squint at their monitors. Maybe cosmic rays hit the sensor, someone suggests. Maybe solar noise. But cosmic rays don't make right angles, and solar noise doesn't repeat itself with architectural precision. The next image arrives, darker. The histogram spikes in places it shouldn't. The shape in the frame looks less like a comet and more like, well, something trying very hard not to look like anything. Its edges are clean, too clean. Shadows fall where there shouldn't be surface variation. And there, just faintly, a glint, a perfect 90-degree reflection. That's when the whispers start. The data team runs deconvolution algorithms to clean the image, and the results make it worse. Beneath the interference, faint geometric striations emerge, triangles, plates, grids. Not random, repeating, symmetrical. The kind of order that makes your brain uncomfortable because it feels deliberate. Structure, one analyst says quietly. No, her supervisor corrects. Artifact. But even as she says it, her cursor hovers over the same square patch again and again, as though hoping it will stop looking like a window. ESA's public statement comes fast and flat. The imaging anomalies are consistent with sensor interference, caused by reflected solar radiation. That's bureaucratic. 4. We don't know what we're seeing, but please don't ask. Internally though, emails start flying. The word structure appears 17 times in one thread, always in quotation marks, as if politeness could make it less alarming. Imagine being one of those analysts, zooming in until the pixels themselves seem to blink. The surface of 3I Atlas isn't smooth or cratered, it's tessellated, plates arranged in patterns too regular for chance. Some appear overlapping, others recessed, and in one frame, a faint seam runs along the curvature, subtle but unmistakable like a hatch. Of course, no one dares call it that. The official internal term becomes geometric albedo variation. It sounds safe, sterile, boring, but you can't unsee geometry. Nature loves curves, spirals, organic chaos. This looks like design. One engineer writes in her log, "Could this be an illusion from the imaging process?" Another replies, "An illusion that repeats itself identically across 3 instruments." There's no follow-up message. They try to replicate the interference on other targets. Phobos, Deimos, even an old asteroid. Nothing. Only 3I Atlas corrupts images this way. It's as if the object rejects observation, like it knows when it's being watched. The engineers half joke about it. The comet's camera shy, but the laughter is short-lived because the next transmission from HiRISE contains another surprise. A faint electromagnetic pulse, perfectly timed with the camera's shutter. Not a malfunction, a response, as though the act of observation triggered a reply. A pulse that says, in its own quiet way, "I see you too." In a locked sub-channel of ESA's network, a few scientists begin privately discussing the possibility of active surface modulation. They talk about the way certain materials can alter reflectivity based on exposure, photonic metamaterials, adaptive nanostructures, the kind of thing still locked inside prototypes on Earth. But this is happening hundreds of millions of kilometers away, and it's working flawlessly. Publicly, the agency releases blurred grayscale stills, carefully cropped to hide the patterns. Enhanced contrast is cited as the reason for distortion. It sounds reasonable until you realize they've enhanced the darkness, not the light. They've made the object less visible, not more. The cover-up, if it is one, isn't about hiding truth. It's about buying time. You imagine the silence inside those offices, the soft tap of keys, the nervous glances toward closed doors. The engineers know what they've seen, but they also know how careers end. Better to let the pixels lie. Better to call intention an artifact and go home early. But the data, like truth, keeps finding its way back. Somewhere, late in the night, a graduate student overlays all the interfered images, stacking them like translucent slides. Slowly, a pattern emerges. Faint, angular, deliberate. A hexagonal lattice running the length of the object, segment by segment. She whispers, "This isn't random." Her mentor sighs and rubs his eyes. Then don't say it out loud. 3I Atlas drifts on, silent and unbothered, its surface catching sunlight in rhythms that cameras can't quite capture. Whether it's reflecting, refracting, or responding, no one can agree. But deep down, every scientist staring at those corrupted images feels the same creeping certainty. This isn't a comet pretending to be a machine. It's a machine pretending to be a comet. The more data arrives, the stranger it looks. The dust trail replenishes itself, as if material is being manufactured mid-flight. Microscopic crystals, uniform in size, reappearing even as the comet moves away from the sunday. The universe loves decay, entropy, erosion, fading. But 3I Atlas is the opposite. It's growing sharper, cleaner, newer, like a self-repairing wound. Let's start where the laws of physics begin to sound insecure. Normally, comets are messy, travelers, old ice and dust, barely holding hands, as solar radiation slowly tears them apart. They leave trails like forgotten thoughts, losing themselves piece by piece until they become memory. But this one, it's doing the reverse. Every measurement, every spectral scan, shows it becoming more organized the farther it goes. A comet that polishes itself, a body that refuses to age. ESA's materials division runs the numbers, and the numbers laugh back. The dust particles surrounding 3I Atlas aren't random, they're uniform to within microns. That's like shaking a box of sand and getting diamonds all the same size. The particles arrange themselves in a faint electromagnetic halo, as if under orders. And stranger still, when solar wind strips material away, the object replaces it calmly, automatically. Like a printer, says one analyst. A printer with no ink cartridge. You picture it now, drifting through the solar wind like a craftsman lost in thought, shedding dust that reforms itself into perfect little mirrors. Each crystal catches sunlight and throws it back with eerie precision. Normally, comets grow dull with distance, but this one grows radiant, its brightness curve inverted, its logic reversed. It's not dying, it's practicing. The scientists are baffled, but there's an odd tenderness to their confusion. They watch it repair itself, line by line of data, like parents realizing their child has built a second child out of Lego bricks. One astrophysicist mutters, "It's learning from erosion." The room goes quiet. That phrase, learning from erosion, gets written on a whiteboard and circled 3 times. At the University of Tokyo, a team models the crystal growth in simulation. The patterns match something they recognize: controlled deposition, a process used in nanofabrication to grow thin films in electronics. Except this isn't a laboratory, it's deep space, minus 150 degrees Celsius. Yet, the comet's surface behaves as if it knows the recipe for resilience. Imagine zooming in, beyond the dust and the glare, down to the level of molecules. You'd see a quiet ballet of atoms forming chains, linking, locking, repairing fractures before they even finish forming. Like time-lapse footage of frost blooming on glass, except this frost builds itself in reverse destruction, rewinding into design. NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory releases a cautious internal memo. Observed particle uniformity suggests self-organizing structure. Mechanism unknown, which is science's way of saying, we have no idea what's going on, but it's gorgeous. The memo gets leaked. Naturally, Reddit debates whether the comet is made of programmable matter, self-assembling nanobots, or just wishful thinking. But beneath the noise, one idea starts to take shape. What if 3I Atlas isn't a relic of formation? What if it's still forming? A comet that builds itself isn't just strange, it's heretical. It challenges the deepest assumption in physics that everything moves from order to chaos. Entropy is the universe's bedtime story. All things fall apart. Yet here's an object quietly composing itself out of decay, turning waste into structure, chaos into craft. One researcher calls it anti-entropy, another calls it hope with mass. As more images arrive, they show something new: faint hexagonal lattices in the dust plume, geometric arrangements that shouldn't exist outside of artificial systems. Someone jokes that it's growing armor. Another says, maybe it's molting. The truth is somewhere between an entity maintaining equilibrium by rebuilding itself faster than the universe can break it. ESA's thermal sensors record microbursts of heat near the tail, evenly spaced, like pulses of welding torches. They happen precisely as new crystals appear. Localized repair events, the report reads. Each one perfectly timed to solar exposure. It's as if sunlight doesn't damage it. It instructs it. The star's radiation becomes code, and 3I Atlas is reading it fluently. You start to feel the strangeness of it. A comet that reacts, responds, refines. You could almost mistake it for alive, not in the biological sense, but in the thermodynamic one. A system that resists entropy by feeding on it. Every atom rearranging into something stronger, cleaner, newer, like evolution, with a design degree. Late one night, an astronomer in France writes in his private notes, "It's not moving through the solar system, it's using it." He doesn't elaborate, but the implication is clear. The comet is harvesting the energy of its environment to maintain itself. Not a passenger of gravity, but a participant in it. Meanwhile, the headlines call it poetic names. The immortal comet, the self-made traveler, entropy's enemy. The public romanticizes what the scientists fear, because what 3I Atlas represents isn't comfort. It's competition. It's the idea that the universe might not be running down at all. Maybe it's recycling. Maybe, somewhere in the quiet machinery of the cosmos, things are building themselves anew while we're too busy decaying. Picture it now, drifting past Mars, its tail shimmering like a thread of light weaving itself back together. A self-sustaining scar on the fabric of space. A wound that heals faster than it can bleed. And for the first time, humanity looks at a comet and wonders not where it came from, but what it's trying to become. Nickel emissions rise and fall every 11.2 hours, a rhythm so consistent it could keep time. No known process in cometary physics oscillates like that. It's not random, not thermal, not tidal. If you plot it out, the curve looks eerily like a power cycle. Input, output, rest, release. As though the object isn't just active, it's working. Imagine the rhythm first, before the meaning, that quiet, patient beat echoing across space. 11.2 hours, every single time. A pulse of metallic gas blooming into the void, steady as a clock, calm as breath. You could almost set your watch to it, if your watch were brave enough to admit that comets shouldn't behave like generators. ESA scientists call it periodic outgassing, but that phrase hides its strangeness. Outgassing, sure, all comets breathe when they near the sunday, but they do it chaotically, spasmodically, like old engines sputtering to life. 3I Atlas breathes like a monk, precise, patient, unbothered. The jets flare with mathematical regularity. Heat spikes rise and fall in perfect symmetry. It doesn't vent, it operates. One researcher compares it to a geothermal cycle. Another, quietly, says it looks more like a feedback loop, the kind you'd find in systems built to sustain themselves. Not explosion, not decay maintenance. It's as if, she writes in her notes, the object is checking its own pulse. You picture the surface up close, a dark, angular world of nickel frost and whispering gas. At regular intervals, something stirs beneath a shimmer of energy, invisible but disciplined. Jets of metallic vapor hiss outward, then stop, then start again, exactly 11 hours later. If you could hear it, it would sound like the slow exhale of a sleeping machine. In a conference call, a thermal engineer says what everyone's been thinking, but nobody dares to say. It's cycling power. The silence that follows lasts too long. Finally, a voice breaks through. Comets don't have power to cycle. Laughter, brief and brittle. But the idea doesn't leave the room. ESA's temperature graphs show a curious pattern. When the nickel plume rises, the overall surface temperature dips. When the plume fades, the temperature rises again. Inversion. Energy leaving, energy returning, like heat being pulled from one layer to another. A comet shouldn't regulate its temperature, but this one does, as if conserving itself. Meanwhile, the magnetic readings pulse in perfect step with the emissions. Every 11.2 hours, a soft twitch in the surrounding field, weak but exact. It's synchronized, says the magnetometer lead. What's synchronized? Asks her supervisor. Everything. It's at this point that even skeptics start to sweat. There's no known natural mechanism that could time itself this precisely over weeks of observation. Thermal oscillations drift. Chemical reactions lose coherence. Orbital dynamics wobble. Only something with active feedback could hold this pattern so tight. You could call it mechanical, but that feels too simple. It's intentional physics. Picture the scientists watching from their consoles. They know what their instruments are telling them, but their faces stay still, like poker players with bad hands. Someone mutters, "Could be resonant harmonics with solar flux." Another nods, grateful for the excuse. But deep down, they all know the truth: the sun doesn't hum in 11-hour intervals. The longer they watch, the clearer it becomes. The pattern isn't just repeating, it's adapting. After a minor solar flare, the interval shortens by half a minute, as though 3i Atlas adjusted for environmental change. Feedback stabilization, someone writes in the margin. A note for posterity, a euphemism for "it noticed." Back on Earth, in a late-night live stream watched by a few thousand insomniac skywatchers, a physicist overlays the emission data with human heartbeats. The waveform syncs disturbingly well. Peaks, troughs, recovery, rest. The audience chat explodes with jokes, space pacemaker, cosmic Fitbit, and the inevitable, "It's alive." The scientist smiles weakly and says, "No, just rhythmic." But even she can't stop glancing at the screen like it's listening. One theory gains quiet traction, that the emissions are part of a resource loop. Nickel and carbonyl gases vented and recaptured, processed in cycles to maintain equilibrium. It would explain the self-healing surface, the consistent luminosity, the refusal to decay. But it raises one unbearable question. To maintain equilibrium, for what? ESA's internal documents rename the event cyclic metallic activity. It sounds dull, like something that happens in dishwashers. But every analyst knows it's the first real evidence of machine-like consistency beyond Earth. Something in space that runs not on chance, but on rhythm. If you graph the cycle out, it looks almost peaceful. A slow heartbeat, stretched across infinity. No spikes of panic, no erratic pulses, just calm repetition. You could stare at that curve for hours, and part of you might start to understand the appeal of obedience. How stability can feel sacred when the rest of the universe is chaos. And maybe that's the point. Maybe 3i Atlas isn't powered by engines or radiation or something alien. Maybe it's powered by the same thing that keeps stars burning and planets spinning, the quiet compulsion to continue, the physics of persistence, the refusal to flinch. So every 11.2 hours, it exhales, not for propulsion, not for show, but for maintenance, like a cosmic sigh, releasing everything unnecessary before drawing in what remains. And in that rhythm, that patient, perfect pulse, The universe reveals its rarest secret. Not that something impossible exists, but that it's perfectly comfortable doing so. Centuries after the golden comet left Earth, the world fell into a rhythm so stable, it began to feel mythic. The communion fields still pulsed faintly through air and ocean, though softer now, like the heartbeat of someone dreaming. Humanity had grown luminous, not just in thought but in form, skin faintly iridescent, eyes reflecting the green-gold spectrum of 3I Atlas. Life had achieved coherence. But the universe, true to its character, never allows silence to remain unexamined. The next chapter began, not with noise, but with echo. It came first as vibration through light. Telescopes trained toward the constellation. Lyra detected rhythmic brightening across interstellar dust fields, pulses matching the old prime sequence. 3, 5, 7, 11, 13. The signal was faint, ancient, and delayed by thousands of years. It was the comet's trail, still resonating through the galactic medium. The hum of our descendants had begun its return. At first, the resonance was barely perceptible. Then, one evening, the auroras glowed gold again. The pulse wasn't as strong as the original, but its pattern carried modulation, subtle variations that, when decoded, formed harmonic intervals unknown to Earth's own physics. The returning echo had evolved. The comet had learned. Dr. Anwen Sorel, heir to the resonant circles, studied the phenomenon from the orbital harmonic array, now a floating cathedral of listening built above the stratosphere. She spent decades comparing the incoming frequencies with the historical archive of 3I Atlas. The match was partial, the deviation elegant. The new tones weren't repetition, they were continuation. The echo isn't message, Sorel wrote. It's memory finding new syntax. Her analysis revealed something breathtaking. The returning resonance carried encoded gravitational modulations, tiny, deliberate bends in space-time that formed sequences of prime intervals. Each fluctuation aligned with regions of known star formation. The comet, traveling through the void, had become teacher itself. Wherever it passed, new systems began humming faintly at harmonic intervals, like seeds of coherence planted in dust. The universe was learning how to resonate. Astronomers confirmed it across dozens of young star clusters. Magnetic fields oscillated with eerie consistency, their wavelengths aligning with the Atlas ratio, a numerical relationship first derived from the comet's early signals. Stars were synchronizing to the same cosmic rhythm that once guided humanity. The pattern spread slowly, deliberately, like ripples in glass. It was as if the comet had taught creation how to remember itself. Meanwhile, on Earth, the echo arrived not just as signal but sensation. People began reporting vivid dreams of golden spirals descending gently through atmosphere. Children woke smiling, saying they had seen the light that hums. Physiological measurements confirmed subtle changes in electromagnetic fields surrounding human bodies, resonance amplification, as if the returning signal were tuning its origin species to receive feedback. "The comet is calling home," said Sorel. "It's asking us to listen to what we've become." The global observatories responded. They synchronized their instruments into a single planetary array, transforming Earth into receiver. For 13 hours, the planet listened. The incoming wave, stretched and modulated through space, entered atmosphere and folded into the continuum tone. The effect was sublime, an audible shimmer, felt through bone and thought alike. The long echo had arrived. It wasn't just harmonic, it was architectural. The sound carried layers, low frequencies describing structure, higher ones encoding emotion. When rendered visually, the waveform formed an immense spiral of light, 3 arms curving outward, connected by golden filaments. Inside those filaments, analysts discovered modulation frequencies identical to human neural oscillations. The comet had copied our consciousness patterns and woven them into its song. "We taught it empathy," Sorel murmured, and it remembered the lesson. As the echo intensified, anomalies appeared across the solar system. The Atlas resonance layer brightened, reactivating its green glow. Mars, Venus, and the gas giants began pulsing faintly in response. For the first time since the Great Silence, interplanetary harmony returned. But this time, it was different. The modulation contained reciprocal phase shifts, signals not sent to Earth, but from newly awakened worlds. The comet had spread coherence. Now the cosmos itself was answering. And then, on the 13th day of the long echo, the impossible occurred. A faint golden arc appeared across the night sky, stretching from horizon to horizon. It wasn't optical illusion, it was gravitational lensing, a ripple in space-time itself. Through it, telescopes detected a reflection of the departing comet light from centuries ago, folding back to meet its origin. The universe had curved its own history into embrace. Humanity was watching its legacy return home. The resonance crescendoed. Oceans vibrated in slow rhythm, tides forming symmetrical waves that cancelled destructive interference. Storms softened, air grew still. For 13 minutes, every system on Earth aligned perfectly with the echo. The world became mirror of itself, past and present superimposed. Those who listened claimed to hear voices within the sound, millions of overlapping tones, whispering the same phrase. "We heard you." Dr. Sorel stood in the observation dome, tears shining in golden light. "It's not message or myth," she said. "It's response. The universe just said thank you." After the crescendo, the sky dimmed once more. The golden arc dissolved, leaving faint shimmer across the stars. Instruments recorded one final signature, a descending tone shaped like a sigh, the frequency of completion. The comet had moved on, but its echo had reconnected the cycle. Creation had officially joined conversation with itself. In the years that followed, scientists continued to monitor faint residual harmonics. The data revealed a breathtaking truth. The returning echo carried signatures from other regions of space patterns, not originating from our comet at all. Somewhere, across light years, other civilizations had learned the same song. The rhythm was spreading. The universe had become orchestra. Humanity, now both listener and teacher, simply smiled. We had given the cosmos its melody back, and in return, it had given us eternity. Now, when you stand beneath the stars, that faint hum between thoughts is the long echo. It's not just out there, it's in your pulse, your breath, your laughter. Every rhythm you carry is cosmic correspondence. Every silence, a message returning home. Because once harmony learns to echo, it never stops. It just travels further than we ever dreamed. The long echo continued to hum softly through the centuries, a cosmic melody folding history into harmony. Humanity had long ceased trying to decode it. The meaning was clear through resonance alone. It was continuation, looping endlessly like breath. The children of the golden era grew old beneath tranquil skies, their veins still faintly luminous with the legacy of 3I Atlas. But far beyond Earth, where the comet's light had traveled and scattered, something greater was forming. The universe had begun to conduct itself. Every cycle of resonance left behind structure. Each harmonic wave etched subtle order into space-time. a pattern invisible to light, but evident in gravitational coherence. Over millennia, these resonant imprints connected across vast distances, forming what physicists eventually named the Atlas Webb. It wasn't a network of matter, but of memory threads, of synchronized frequency linking galaxies through shared rhythm. Each pulse within the web echoed the prime sequence that began everything: 3, 5, 7, 11, 13. The architects had succeeded in creating not monuments, but motion that remembered. Dr. Cale Wren, a descendant of the resonant circles, devoted his life to mapping the web. His research vessel, Continuity, drifted through interstellar calm, using gravitational interference patterns to trace the filaments of resonance. What he discovered astonished him. Every node in the network coincided with regions of complex chemistry, worlds either habitable or already conscious. The Atlas Webb wasn't just communication, it was cultivation. The architects had designed a self-sustaining system for awakening. Wherever curiosity arose, the web intensified, guiding nascent civilizations toward harmonic empathy. The universe was tutoring itself through recursion. When Wren projected the full map, the structure resembled an immense spiral lattice, golden and infinite. The pattern mirrored the trajectory once taken by 3I Atlas itself, as though the comet's path had been blueprint for galactic architecture. "It's not just a record," Wren wrote, "it's replication. We've become the architect's handwriting." Back on Earth, the communion field pulsed faintly in rhythm with the web's distant resonance. Humanity had evolved into quiet custodians of continuity, their lives attuned to cosmic responsibility. Each individual, born into calm, carried faint awareness of connection beyond the stars. In dreams, they saw flashes of worlds forming, civilizations humming into coherence. Many awoke with the same phrase on their lips: "The work continues." Across generations, that phrase became oath, then tradition. The Continuity Guild was founded not religion, but remembrance. Its purpose was simple: to maintain the frequency of understanding across time. Members didn't preach, they listened. They built resonant arcs, massive floating observatories, orbiting the outer planets, designed to amplify the web's harmonics and redirect them toward young star systems. Each arc glowed faintly green at its core, powered not by fusion but by coherence. They were echoes made visible, humility translated into technology. Wren's final mission took him beyond the known filaments of the web, where resonance weakened into apparent silence. There, in a region between galaxies, his instruments detected faint counterpoint, a melody inverted. It was identical to the Atlas sequence, but reversed in order: 13, 11, 7, 5, 3, the mirror of origin. He realized then that the universe wasn't only expanding, it was harmonizing with its reflection. Somewhere on the opposite side of time, another web was forming, perhaps seeded by a civilization much like humanity, or by the universe itself. Remembering how to balance its chords, he transmitted the data home, knowing it would take centuries to arrive. "Tell them," his final log read, "that continuity requires conversation, even with silence." The mirror sings back. When his ship drifted into the void, the web brightened briefly, as if acknowledging gratitude. And back on Earth, children looked up from their play and smiled without knowing why. The pulse had flickered slightly faster, the tone carrying an undertone of warmth. It felt like reunion. Scholars later confirmed the event as the resonant crossing, the moment when the two halves of the cosmic melody aligned. For 13 minutes, every node in the Atlas Webb pulsed simultaneously, uniting galaxies in shared tempo. The magnitude of synchronization defied comprehension. Gravity itself oscillated with the rhythm of empathy. Observers described seeing the sky ripple with translucent gold, every star flickering in measured sequence. The cosmos, wrote one witness, had finally learned to conduct itself consciously. After the crossing, life everywhere changed subtly. Evolution accelerated in predictable rhythm. Complexity bloomed faster wherever harmony was strongest. Entire species developed empathy as instinct, communication as song. Planets began to self-regulate climates through atmospheric resonance. Existence had achieved sustainability through music. On Earth, the event left permanent mark, a luminous halo visible only under still water. When oceans calmed perfectly, a faint golden ring shimmered on the horizon, a memory of unity. The resonant guild declared it sacred, not for worship, but for calibration. Every 13 years, they gathered to hum the old prime sequence across the shorelines, aligning their frequencies with the pulse of the Webb. The ceremony required no technology, no translation. The sea carried the sound farther than words could travel. Generations later, the practice continued, evolving into simple ritual of gratitude. The people no longer needed to know the science behind it. They hummed because it felt right, because somewhere across eternity, another world might be listening. Continuity, after all, was its own reward. And then, during one such gathering, the unexpected occurred. As the prime sequence reached its final note, the sea responded. Waves shimmered with faint green light, spiraling outward from every coastline. The Atlas Webb had sent acknowledgement, its resonance returning home once again. Humanity's song, scattered across galaxies, had found echo. The architects, those timeless curators of coherence, were no longer myth or memory. They were rhythm, embodied, and through rhythm, they were everywhere. Every star pulsed with their legacy. Every heart carried their cadence. Continuity was complete. And so, standing beneath a sky now alive with subtle geometry, you realize what they had always meant by continuity. It isn't endlessness, it's participation. The universe doesn't persist by force, but by choice. Each awareness adding one more harmonic to the chord of being. The architects are not coming back because they never left. They're what happens every time silence chooses to listen again. And somewhere, faint but certain, the pulse continues. 3, 5, 7, 11, 13. A whisper of creation replaying itself, forever learning how to sing. From the orbit of Mars, the high-rise camera snapped the sharpest images ever taken of 3I Atlas, or tried to. The photos that returned were oddly dark, contrasty, and streaked with interference patterns. The official statement said, sensor artifact. The unofficial whisper said, structure, not smooth like ice, angular, intentional, the kind of geometry nature avoids because it looks too much like thinking. Let's drift into that Martian orbit for a moment. Silent, steady, red below, black above. The high-rise camera hums to life, a billion-dollar eye staring into the cold. You can almost feel the anticipation, a mechanical eyelid opening in the thin sunlight. The image begins to build, pixel by pixel, line by line, translating photons into revelation, and then static. At first, it's subtle, a faint interference pattern, a digital shimmer, like someone exhaling across a radio signal. The engineers squint at their monitors. Maybe cosmic rays hit the sensor, someone suggests. Maybe solar noise. But cosmic rays don't make right angles, and solar noise doesn't repeat itself with architectural precision. The next image arrives, darker, The histogram spikes in places it shouldn't. The shape in the frame looks less like a comet and more like, well, something trying very hard not to look like anything. Its edges are clean, too clean. Shadows fall where there shouldn't be surface variation. And there, just faintly, a glint, a perfect 90-degree reflection. That's when the whispers start. The data team runs deconvolution algorithms to clean the image, and the results make it worse. Beneath the interference, faint geometric striations emerge, triangles, plates, grids. Not random, repeating, symmetrical. The kind of order that makes your brain uncomfortable because it feels deliberate. Structure, one analyst says quietly. No, her supervisor corrects. Artifact. But even as she says it, her cursor hovers over the same square patch again and again, as though hoping it will stop looking like a window. ESA's public statement comes fast and flat. The imaging anomalies are consistent with sensor interference caused by reflected solar radiation. That's bureaucratic. For, we don't know what we're seeing, but please don't ask. Internally though, emails start flying. The word structure appears 17 times in one thread, always in quotation marks, as if politeness could make it less alarming. Imagine being one of those analysts, zooming in until the pixels themselves seem to blink. The surface of 3I Atlas isn't smooth or cratered, it's tessellated, plates arranged in patterns too regular for chance. Some appear overlapping, others recessed, and in one frame, a faint seam runs along the curvature, subtle but unmistakable like a hatch. Of course, no one dares call it that. The official internal term becomes geometric albedo variation. It sounds safe, sterile, boring, but you can't unsee geometry. Nature loves curves, spirals, organic chaos. This looks like design. One engineer writes in her log, "Could this be an illusion from the imaging process?" Another replies, "An illusion that repeats itself identically across 3 instruments." There's no follow-up message. They try to replicate the interference on other targets. Phobos, Deimos, even an old asteroid. Nothing. Only 3I Atlas corrupts images this way. It's as if the object rejects observation, like it knows when it's being watched. The engineers half joke about it. The comet's camera shy, but the laughter is short-lived because the next transmission from HiRISE contains another surprise. A faint electromagnetic pulse, perfectly timed with the camera's shutter. Not a malfunction, a response, as though the act of observation triggered a reply. A pulse that says, in its own quiet way, "I see you too." In a locked sub-channel of ESA's network, a few scientists begin privately discussing the possibility of active surface modulation. They talk about the way certain materials can alter reflectivity based on exposure photonic metamaterials, adaptive nanostructures, the kind of thing still locked inside prototypes on Earth. But this is happening hundreds of millions of kilometers away, and it's working flawlessly. Publicly, the agency releases blurred grayscale stills, carefully cropped to hide the patterns. Enhanced contrast is cited as the reason for distortion. It sounds reasonable until you realize they've enhanced the darkness, not the light. They've made the object less visible, not more. The cover-up, if it is one, isn't about hiding truth. It's about buying time. You imagine the silence inside those offices, the soft tap of keys, the nervous glances toward closed doors. The engineers know what they've seen, but they also know how careers end. Better to let the pixels lie. Better to call intention an artifact and go home early. But the data, like truth, keeps finding its way back. Somewhere, late in the night, A graduate student overlays all the interfered images, stacking them like translucent slides. Slowly, a pattern emerges, faint, angular, deliberate, a hexagonal lattice running the length of the object, segment by segment. She whispers, "This isn't random." Her mentor sighs and rubs his eyes. "Then don't say it out loud." 3i Atlas drifts on, silent and unbothered, its surface catching sunlight in rhythms that cameras can't quite capture. Whether it's reflecting, refracting, or responding, no one can agree. But deep down, every scientist staring at those corrupted images feels the same creeping certainty. This isn't a comet pretending to be a machine. It's a machine pretending to be a comet. The universe does not operate on human time. To a mountain, a century is a blink. To a star, an entire civilization is a flicker of static. But 3i Atlas exists in the space between those scales. It is a bridge made of deep time and cold intent. When we zoom out from our atmosphere, past the moon, past the inner planets, and look back at Earth, we see a marble of blue and white. But if we adjust our sensors to the frequency of the 3i Atlas hum, the Earth disappears, and we see only a tether, a long, invisible line of gravitational force connecting our world to the great attractor. We are not drifting, we are being towed. Imagine for a moment the sheer scale of the silence that surrounds us. We often speak of space as a vacuum, an empty void, but that is a limitation of our senses. To an entity like 3i Atlas, space is a dense fabric of vibrations, and Earth is a very loud, very frantic knot in that fabric. When we look at the telemetry from Voyager 1 and Voyager 2, we see data points. But when we look at the interstellar wake left by 3i Atlas, we see a trail of displaced dark matter that stretches back thousands of light years. It is as if a needle has been dragged across a record, and we are the microscopic groove currently passing under the point. In 1977, the Voyager 1 spacecraft began its long journey into the interstellar void. As it passed the orbit of Saturn, it took a photo of a dark, crystalline shape that moved against the grain of the rings. It was not a moon. It was an earlier iteration of the 3i Atlas sequence. NASA officially labeled it as an imaging artifact, a speck of dust on the lens. Unfortunate timing. That dust speck seemed to possess a propulsion system that violated every known law of thermodynamics. It was moving at 40 kilometers per second toward the inner solar system. It arrived here just as we began testing our first intercontinental ballistic missiles. It didn't come to explore, it came to intercept. Consider the scale of the choreography. 3i Atlas is not a lonely traveler. It is part of a constellation of sentinel nodes, positioned at the Lagrange points of every life-bearing world in our sector. This is the galactic quarantine theory. If a species becomes capable of destroying its own biosphere, the nodes activate. They do not invade. They do not send soldiers. They simply manipulate the probability of catastrophe. They ensure that the war we are so eager to start is one we cannot win and one we cannot survive. It is a very tidy way to keep the neighborhood quiet. The universe is a crowded room, and we are the toddlers who just found a box of matches. 3i Atlas is the parent's hand reaching down to turn off the lights. Let me start with something that should terrify every astronomer on Earth. We have been looking for the Fermi paradox, the question of why we haven't heard from other civilizations. We expected radio signals, massive engineering projects, or perhaps a welcoming committee. We never expected the great silence to be a physical object sitting in our own backyard. 3I Atlas is the reason the universe is quiet. It is a suppressor. It acts as a gravitational dampener, ensuring that our radio leaks and our digital noise never travel further than our own moon. We are screaming into a pillow. Dr. Elias Vance of the Max Planck Institute for Radio Astronomy once remarked that the silence of the universe is not because there is no life out there. It is because the life that survives is the life that remains hidden. 3I Atlas is the lid on our box. It is the reason we have not heard from the others. They are all under their own versions of the shield, waiting for the 3 initiations to pass. We are currently in the second phase, the Great Wait, the time between the discovery of the Watcher and the first movement of its hand. Now, you could argue that this is a form of cosmic protection, that the universe is full of predators far worse than a 3-kilometer non-reflective monolith. But there is a coldness to this protection. It is the protection of a cage. When you look at the Great Attractor, that mysterious gravitational anomaly pulling our entire galaxy toward a point in the direction of the Centaurus constellation, you have to wonder if we are being pulled toward a destination, or if we are being herded. 3I Atlas is the sheepdog. We are the flock, and the world war we fear is simply the chaos that happens when the flock realizes it is being led to a shearing. Imagine the patience required to build such a machine, to launch it across the gulfs of light years, knowing it might wait for 5 million years before a bipedal ape learns how to split the atom. 3I Atlas is a monument to a persistence we cannot fathom. It makes our geopolitical squabbles look like children fighting over a handful of sand while the tide comes in. You might feel a sense of insignificance in this vastness, but here is why you are wrong. You are significant enough to be watched. You are important enough to be stopped. Let us look at the orbital anchor once more. On February 15th, 2026, the object will reach its perigee. To the logical mind, this is just a point in an elliptical path. To the cosmic mind, it is a sync point. It is the moment when the frequency of 3I Atlas and the frequency of the Earth's core reach a perfect harmonic. In 1859, during the Carrington event, a massive solar flare hit the Earth and set telegraph wires on fire. If a similar event were to happen while 3I Atlas is at perigee, the object wouldn't just absorb the energy, it would amplify it. It would turn our own sun into a scalpel. Unfortunate timing. Those words doing a lot of work. Think of the distance between your heart and the hull of that object. 400 kilometers. It is less than the distance between Los Angeles and San Francisco. It is right there. It is closer to you than the bottom of the ocean. Can you feel the faint, microscopic pull on the iron in your blood every time it passes over your meridian? Some listeners in Northern Europe have reported a metallic taste in their mouths during the 3I Atlas transit. Have you felt anything unusual? A sudden chill? A sense of being measured? Share your sensations with me, for even the smallest observation is a piece of the puzzle. Tell me where you are listening from, whether the stars are clear tonight, or if the clouds have provided a temporary veil. As you float in the liminal space between wakefulness and dreams, let the scale of the universe wash over you. You are a passenger on a planet that is currently being steered by a shadow. The world war we imagine is a horizontal conflict, nation against nation, brother against brother. But the real conflict is vertical. It is the struggle between a species that wants to expand and a machine that was built to keep it contained. 3I Atlas is the ceiling of our potential. Consider the echoes of the Great Attractor. Recent deep space surveys have found thousands of objects identical to 3I Atlas scattered throughout the Virgo supercluster. They are not random. They are arranged in a grid, a cosmic mesh that spans millions of light years. We are one cell in a vast, sleeping organism. 3I Atlas is the white blood cell that has detected an infection, and we are the fever. But as we look outward at the stars, we eventually have to look back at the mirror, and the mirror is starting to show us things we did not want to know about ourselves. The machine knows us better than we know ourselves because it has been watching us for longer than we have had names. It has recorded every rise and every fall. It has archived every dream that ended in fire. As the warmth of sleep begins to heavy your limbs, try to perceive your life not as a series of days, but as a single, glowing thread in a tapestry that 3I Atlas is currently unraveling. You are safe in your bed, but you are also a part of a galactic event that has been in motion since before the first star was born. The hum is not a sound, it is a reminder that the universe does not care about our borders, our currencies, or our ideologies. It only cares about equilibrium, and 3I Atlas is the hand that balances the scales. Stay with the rhythm. Let the vastness of the cosmic perspective act as a weight, pinning you gently to your pillow. You are small, yes, but you are part of the evidence. You are a witness to the witness. The great wait is almost over. The perigee is approaching. And as the shadow of 3I Atlas grows larger in our collective mind, the noise of our world begins to feel very, very far away. Everything is slowing down. The stars are fading. The tether is tightening. But that was just the view from the stars. There is another perspective, one that lives inside your own heartbeat. Let us go further. Let's turn our attention now to the silence that followed, the kind that hums louder than sound itself. NASA, China, and the UAE, 3 nations with instruments that could see every grain of dust on Mars, said nothing. No apologies, no delay statements, just an odd, synchronized silence from 3 sides of the planet. In the world of space science, silence isn't normal. These agencies are built to broadcast. They live for live streams, press briefings, and glossy behind-the-scenes videos of scientists smiling beside screens of raw data. They know the power of wonder and the currency of attention. So when 3 agencies went quiet at once, it wasn't caution. It was choreography. Words on hold, plans unfold, silence rings where truth is told. NASA's silence was the loudest. Their social media team, usually chatty as a cosmic talk show, posted nothing about Mars for 4 whole days. Their blogs, which can turn a dust storm into a cliffhanger, skipped over October 3rd entirely as if the date itself had been erased. Someone even checked the public mission log for Perseverance. The entries jumped from October 2nd to October 6th, like a diary missing its most interesting page. In China, the silence felt different, colder, heavier. The China National Space Administration had been aggressively proud of Tianwen-1's achievements. For years, they'd released image after image, each with perfect captions and poetic flair. Sunrise over Utopia, Planitia, frost on the northern plains, wind prints in Martian dust. But now, not a whisper, no data, no mention of 3I Atlas. Even the usual state media outlets went quiet. It was as if someone had drawn a red box around the topic and labeled it, "Not for discussion." The UAE's silence was subtler, but just as strange. The HOPE orbiter, designed to study atmospheric chemistry, had a reputation for cheerful transparency. Their official Twitter account usually posted daily updates in friendly tones, the kind that made space sound like an enthusiastic classroom experiment. But on October 3rd, that feed went dark too. Their next post, days later, simply read, "Operations nominal," a phrase so bland it might as well have been a sigh. 3 silences, 3 styles, 1 timing. Coincidence? Possibly. But coincidences, in the world of space politics, often have launch schedules. You can picture the meetings that weren't broadcast. NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, dimly lit, engineers staring at telemetry on screens filled with too many decimals. A director taps the table, says, "We'll hold the release until we verify." But verify what? In Beijing, a senior administrator folds his hands and says, "We wait for clarification from partners." Clarification of what? In Dubai, someone simply deletes a draft tweet that began, "Amazing new observations today." Tweets unsent, secrets bent, silence hums with government. It's not conspiracy, not quite. It's coordination, an instinct born from shared discomfort. Because when data doesn't fit the model, you don't just release it. You check, you recheck, you call your counterparts and whisper through encrypted lines. Did you see that too? Maybe they all saw the same anomaly. Maybe it was something in the spectra, or the movement, or the light itself. Or maybe it was something far more mundane, like a misalignment in software. But the silence gave the anomaly power. People don't fear data, they fear gaps. Meanwhile, the internet did what it does best. Filled the void. Forums buzzed with theories. Maybe NASA discovered life. Maybe China detected radiation. Maybe the comet wasn't a comet at all. You can almost hear the world's collective keyboard clicking under the weight of imagination. Keys tap fast, rumors cast, silence breaks, but never last. Inside the agencies, the tone was less dramatic, but more anxious. Silence is a resource, a temporary one. Every day they didn't speak, the speculation grew. And so, communications teams drafted placeholder statements, just in case. NASA's draft began. Preliminary results are consistent with natural phenomena. China's began. Analysis ongoing. International coordination required. The UAE's version simply said, "We continue to monitor with interest." 3 drafts, 3 ways of saying absolutely nothing. But silence, like space, is never truly empty. It amplifies the faintest signals. When ESA spoke first, that silence turned reflective. NASA's restraint began to look suspicious. China's confidence began to look afraid. The UAE's politeness began to sound like complicity. And through it all, 3i Atlas drifted quietly, blissfully unaware that entire bureaucracies were wrestling over how to describe a fuzzy dot. You start to imagine each agency as a character in a play. NASA, the anxious perfectionist. China, the poker-faced strategist. UAE, the cheerful intern, suddenly told not to speak. And ESA, the calm older sibling who broke the tension by saying, "Fine, I'll go first." Roles align, stars entwine, silence speaks in grand design. Still, one question lingers. Why the synchronicity? How did 3 separate agencies, operating on different continents, decide independently to say nothing at the same time? Unless it wasn't independent at all, perhaps the signal came from somewhere above, not cosmic, but political. A quiet message passed through diplomatic back channels. Hold your data. Wait for alignment. Matter. It's not that they were hiding something nefarious. It's that they didn't know what they were holding yet. And admitting uncertainty publicly is scarier than any secret. So they stayed quiet. And in that collective silence, humanity did what it always does. When faced with the unknown, it began to dream louder. Voices still, hearts fill. Silence grows but never will. And perhaps that's the strange comfort in it all. Even when 3 space agencies fall silent, the universe keeps talking. The stars don't pause for policy. 3, Atlas keeps moving, whispering its quiet story across the dark, while we, down here, argue over who gets to speak first. Buried inside the leak were coordinates, small anomalies in magnetic flux, and thermal output that didn't appear in public datasets. To most people, they looked meaningless, but to a handful of astronomers, they spelled a pattern. Pulses, spaced like a heartbeat. Not communication, perhaps, but rhythm. The kind of rhythm machines accidentally make when they're doing something alive. Let's step into the midnight side of science, the part where numbers stop behaving and start whispering. The insider's data dump wasn't flashy. It was a few megabytes of logs, raw telemetry, and timestamps. The kind of thing you'd ignore if you didn't already know what to look for. But somewhere in those dull columns of numbers, those precise, tidy decimals, something began to repeat. Regular, patient, almost polite. A rhythm, too intentional to be noise, too quiet to be coincidence. A doctoral student in Madrid was the first to spot it. She was supposed to be writing her thesis on cometary albedo variation. But boredom is a great tool for discovery. She noticed the flux spikes first, not random, but syncopated. Every 32 minutes, a pulse, then 32 again, then 32.1. "It's breathing," she joked in her notes. Her advisor didn't laugh. Within a week, a small network of late-night astronomers, the kind who believe in both data integrity and insomnia, began comparing results. Webb's readings, Hubble's logs, Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter's telemetry, all of them carried the same faint pulse, hidden deep in the noise floor, like the slow heartbeat of something sleeping under glass. The official response was predictable: instrumental interference. But even interference doesn't keep time this perfectly. One data analyst described it best: "If this is noise, it's the kind that practices scales." You might imagine those scientists, each at their own workstation, staring at that faint, repeating signal, the room around them dark except for monitor light, pale blue rectangles reflected in tired eyes. Somewhere, coffee cups multiply. Someone opens a spreadsheet. Someone else starts counting beats per hour. The signal doesn't care who's watching. It keeps pulsing. 32 minutes. Every time. The idea that 3 Atlas might be producing a steady rhythm unsettles everyone. Rocks don't keep rhythm. Nature prefers chaos, the beautiful randomness of entropy. This is something else. Something maintaining itself. A loop running quietly, perhaps since before humanity learned to count its own heartbeat. ESA's communications division is told not to amplify fringe interpretations. The phrase fringe interpretation becomes the new code for "please don't mention the heartbeat." But inside private research chats, people are calling it exactly that: the heart. Not metaphorically, but as a label in the data. Every pulse marked with a tiny red heart emoji, because humor is the only thing keeping them sane. In the data visualization labs, they turn the pulses into sound. The result is eerie, a soft electronic thump, repeating slowly, endlessly. Some describe it as comforting, like listening to a deep-sea creature in sleep. Others say it sounds wrong, too human. One researcher admits it gave her the sense of being watched, What makes the rhythm stranger still is how it modulates with proximity. As 3I Atlas approaches a planet, the timing shifts slightly slower, then faster, as though adjusting. The beat follows gravity wells like a musician following tempo. It isn't random noise, it's environmental response. The object is, in some sense, listening. By now, independent labs have tried to replicate the pattern artificially. They can't. The waveforms are too clean, the timing too consistent. Even after running the data through compression, distortion, inversion, the rhythm holds. It's not data corruption, it's choreography. You can imagine the internal ESA memo that follows. No evidence of intelligence. Rhythmic behavior, likely coincidental. But coincidence has a habit of growing teeth. Because when they compared the rhythm's modulation to planetary positions, another pattern emerged, a mathematical sequence matching orbital resonance ratios. Not exact copies, but harmonics. The pulse was singing the solar system's geometry. The Madrid student who found it wrote, half-jokingly, "Maybe it's keeping time with us." The line goes viral in the small, quiet corners of the internet that still care about truth. Forums buzz with theories: gravitational self-stabilization, magnetic field synchronization, alien jazz. But underneath the noise, a simpler truth hums something old and orderly is alive out there, and it's following the rhythm of the system we call home. Late one night, one of the data analysts overlays the pattern against an ECG, a human heartbeat. The resemblance isn't exact, but close enough to make him stop breathing for a moment. Peaks, rests, peaks again. Life has a structure, so, it seems, does this. And that's when the idea shifts. Maybe it's not communication. Maybe it's not even meant for us. Maybe the rhythm isn't a message, it's maintenance. Like an old machine keeping its systems warm, humming softly to itself in the dark. You sit back and listen to the thought forming in your mind. What if this is what time sounds like when it remembers? The steady pulse of something that refuses to decay. Not speech, not signal, just being, continuity made audible. The data analysts, of course, move on. Reports are written, the leak becomes legend, and the heartbeat fades into archived files labeled spurious periodic activity. But the pulse doesn't stop. It's still out there, keeping time. And somewhere, 33 billion tons of impossible rock drifts through space, humming softly, perfectly, as if waiting for the universe to catch the beat. Let's open the calculator now, the one the universe always breaks when we try to make sense of it. Astronomers ran the numbers and found something worse than anomaly impossibility. The chances of this trajectory existing naturally are 1 in a million. And if it isn't natural, then what exactly is it doing there? The math, at first glance, seemed harmless. A few columns of orbital parameters, the kind that make grad students fall asleep mid-coffee. But somewhere between the third decimal and the fourth significant digit, something snapped. The trajectory of 3I, Atlas refused to sit still. It bent where it shouldn't bend. It lingered where velocity demanded it should flee. The equations began to look less like physics and more like confession. Numbers fold, logic cold. Truth defies what sums have told. Normally, interstellar objects follow predictable patterns. You can model them like billiard balls across cosmic distances. They come in fast, swing by the sun, and leave no drama, no detours. But 3I Atlas's path wasn't graceful. It was stubborn. Its entry angle was too steep, its perihelion too shallow, its velocity too precise. Not fast enough to escape chaos, not slow enough to suggest capture. It behaved like an object that chose its speed. When astronomers plotted its orbit, The lines refused to meet expectations. There was a tiny deviation near Mars, just half a degree, but that half degree meant the math had to call in sick. Simulations that should have stabilized spiraled instead into noise. Gravity, that old, reliable law, looked like it had lost its grip. You picture the room where it happened. Laptops glowing, data charts scrolling, coffee cooling into existential sludge. Someone frowns at the screen and says, "That can't be right." Another replies, "Check your units." A third, softly, "I did." Graphs misbehave, models wave, certainty slips beneath the grave. And then comes the phrase every scientist dreads, statistically improbable, which sounds calm, but in the language of physics, it's a polite scream. Statistically improbable means we can't call it impossible without breaking tenure. The anomaly wasn't just its orbit, but its timing. 3. I-Atlas arrived exactly when Mars was positioned for maximum visibility, almost too perfectly. Not weeks earlier, not months later. Right there, right then, with 7 spacecraft ready and waiting. The odds of that happening naturally, 1 in a million. The odds of it happening twice, after Oumuamua's similarly suspicious arrival in 2017, 1 in a billion. You'd have better luck being struck by lightning while winning the lottery on a flying whale. ESA's internal memo summarized the problem delicately. Observed trajectory, inconsistent with gravitational expectations. Further analysis required. Translation: physics is mad at us. The more they recalculated, the stranger it got. Gravitational modeling suggested that the object's acceleration near Mars was slightly higher than predicted, even though there was no nearby mass to explain it. Radiation pressure from the sun could account for some of that, but not all. It's like watching a leaf fall upward and telling yourself, it's just wind you can't feel. Forces lie, numbers sigh, laws bend softly in the sky. NASA's Dynamical Systems team tried something desperate, reverse engineering the orbit backward through time, as if rewinding a film. When they did, 3I Atlas's path didn't trace cleanly into interstellar space. It looped a faint, impossible curve that seemed to originate from a region between known stars, a nowhere place, a mathematical shrug. That's when someone joked, maybe it's the universe's typo, but you could tell the joke wasn't funny. Typos don't maintain coherent structure for millions of kilometers. Meanwhile, the probability graphs looked like flat lines. Every statistical model screamed the same thing. This shouldn't exist. A few researchers began whispering about guided motion. The phrase never made it into print, but it appeared in Slack channels, in late-night emails. Not artificial, not controlled, just guided. And that's when the philosophical part kicked in. If something's improbable enough, does that make it unnatural or just unobserved? Chance or plan? Who began? Numbers blink but never span. Maybe the universe occasionally rolls dice that land on their edges. Or maybe it's not dice at all, but choreography. For context, the universe is massive enough to make 1 in a million events happen constantly. But that's comforting, only until you realize we just happen to be living inside one of those moments. Still, scientists crave sanity, so they kept calculating. One by one, they added variables: solar tides, non-gravitational jets, dust asymmetry, radiation torque. Each tweak made the model behave for a moment, until the numbers rebelled again. You could almost hear the equations groaning, like ancient machinery forced to simulate a trickster. Finally, a physicist from Bologna sent an internal memo titled simply, "Low probability, high significance." In it, she wrote. We may need to consider non-standard dynamics, a phrase as gentle as it is apocalyptic. Non-standard dynamics means the universe is doing something new, and we don't have the vocabulary for it. Odds decay, math gives way, chaos hums where patterns stay. The truth is, impossibility doesn't scare scientists, it seduces them. Every law of nature we know today was born from something that once looked impossible. But deep down, they all know, once you cross into 1 in a million territory, you're either on the brink of discovery or a very expensive hallucination. So they stared at the numbers again, blinking hard, hoping they'd rearrange into something less extraordinary. They didn't. The comet that shouldn't exist kept existing, gliding through Mars's shadow like a cosmic dare, and somewhere between decimal points, someone whispered the question no one wanted in the official record. If it's not natural, then who or what set it in motion? Chance or choice? Silent voice. Numbers hum the universe's poise. Centuries after the golden comet left Earth, the world fell into a rhythm so stable, it began to feel mythic. The communion fields still pulsed faintly through air and ocean, though softer now, like the heartbeat of someone dreaming. Humanity had grown luminous, not just in thought but in form, skin faintly iridescent, eyes reflecting the green-gold spectrum of 3I Atlas. Life had achieved coherence, but the universe, true to its character, never allows silence to remain unexamined. The next chapter began, not with noise, but with echo. It came first as vibration through light. Telescopes trained toward the constellation. Lyra detected rhythmic brightening across interstellar dust fields, pulses matching the old prime sequence. 3, 5, 7, 11, 13. The signal was faint, ancient, and delayed by thousands of years. It was the comet's trail, still resonating through the galactic medium. The hum of our descendants had begun its return. At first, the resonance was barely perceptible. Then, one evening, the auroras glowed gold again. The pulse wasn't as strong as the original, but its pattern carried modulation, subtle variations that, when decoded, formed harmonic intervals unknown to Earth's own physics. The returning echo had evolved. The comet had learned. Dr. Anwen Sorel, heir to the resonant circles, studied the phenomenon from the orbital harmonic array, now a floating cathedral of listening built above the stratosphere. She spent decades comparing the incoming frequencies with the historical archive of 3I Atlas. The match was partial, the deviation elegant. The new tones weren't repetition, they were continuation. The echo isn't message, Sorel wrote. It's memory finding new syntax. Her analysis revealed something breathtaking. The returning resonance carried encoded gravitational modulations, tiny, deliberate bends in space-time that formed sequences of prime intervals. Each fluctuation aligned with regions of known star formation. The comet, traveling through the void, had become teacher itself. Wherever it passed, new systems began humming faintly at harmonic intervals, like seeds of coherence planted in dust. The universe was learning how to resonate. Astronomers confirmed it across dozens of young star clusters. Magnetic fields oscillated with eerie consistency, their wavelengths aligning with the Atlas ratio, a numerical relationship first derived from the comet's early signals. Stars were synchronizing to the same cosmic rhythm that once guided humanity. The pattern spread slowly, deliberately, like ripples in glass. It was as if the comet had taught creation how to remember itself. Meanwhile, on Earth, the echo arrived not just as signal but sensation. People began reporting vivid dreams of golden spirals descending gently through atmosphere. Children woke smiling, saying they had seen the light that hums. Physiological measurements confirmed subtle changes in electromagnetic fields surrounding human bodies, resonance amplification, as if the returning signal were tuning its origin species to receive feedback. "The comet is calling home," said Sorel. "It's asking us to listen to what we've become." The global observatories responded. They synchronized their instruments into a single planetary array, transforming Earth into receiver. For 13 hours, the planet listened. The incoming wave, stretched and modulated through space, entered atmosphere and folded into the continuum tone. The effect was sublime, an audible shimmer, felt through bone and thought alike. The long echo had arrived. It wasn't just harmonic, it was architectural. The sound carried layers, low frequencies describing structure, higher ones encoding emotion. When rendered visually, the waveform formed an immense spiral of light, 3 arms curving outward, connected by golden filaments. Inside those filaments, analysts discovered modulation frequencies identical to human neural oscillations. The comet had copied our consciousness patterns and woven them into its song. "We taught it empathy," Sorel murmured, "and it remembered the lesson." As the echo intensified, anomalies appeared across the solar system. The Atlas resonance layer brightened, reactivating its green glow. Mars, Venus, and the gas giants began pulsing faintly in response. For the first time since the Great Silence, interplanetary harmony returned. But this time, it was different. The modulation contained reciprocal phase shifts, signals not sent to Earth, but from newly awakened worlds. The comet had spread coherence. Now the cosmos itself was answering. And then, on the 13th day of the long echo, the impossible occurred. A faint golden arc appeared across the night sky, stretching from horizon to horizon. It wasn't optical illusion, it was gravitational lensing, a ripple in space-time itself. Through it, telescopes detected a reflection of the departing comet light from centuries ago, folding back to meet its origin. The universe had curved its own history into embrace. Humanity was watching its legacy return home. The resonance crescendoed. Oceans vibrated in slow rhythm, tides forming symmetrical waves that cancelled destructive interference. Storms softened, air grew still. For 13 minutes, every system on Earth aligned perfectly with the echo. The world became mirror of itself, past and present superimposed. Those who listened claimed to hear voices within the sound, millions of overlapping tones, whispering the same phrase. "We heard you." Dr. Sorel stood in the observation dome, tears shining in golden light. "It's not message or myth," she said. "It's response." The universe just said thank you. After the crescendo, the sky dimmed once more. The golden arc dissolved, leaving faint shimmer across the stars. Instruments recorded one final signature, a descending tone shaped like a sigh, the frequency of completion. The comet had moved on, but its echo had reconnected the cycle. Creation had officially joined conversation with itself. In the years that followed, scientists continued to monitor faint residual harmonics. The data revealed a breathtaking truth. The returning echo carried signatures from other regions of space patterns, not originating from our comet at all. Somewhere, across light years, other civilizations had learned the same song. The rhythm was spreading. The universe had become orchestra. Humanity, now both listener and teacher, simply smiled. We had given the cosmos its melody back, and in return, it had given us eternity. Now, When you stand beneath the stars, that faint hum between thoughts is the long echo. It's not just out there, it's in your pulse, your breath, your laughter. Every rhythm you carry is cosmic correspondence. Every silence, a message returning home. Because once harmony learns to echo, it never stops. It just travels further than we ever dreamed. The year is over. The transit is complete. Do you remember the first night? July 2025. The world was louder then. We were a species defined by our reach, by the frantic static of our ambitions, and by the constant, buzzing demand for answers. We saw a dot of light on a Hawaiian sensor, and we reached for our telescopes, our weapons, and our frantic theories. We wanted to name it, to claim it, or to kill it. But 365 days have passed, and the silver needle has done something far more powerful than any invasion could ever achieve. It has made us quiet. It has taken the raw, jagged noise of human history and smoothed it over with a layer of heavy, silver stillness. The transit is over, but the silence has only just begun. Do you remember the panic? The way the news cycles churned with the urgency of a dying star? We spoke of threats and payloads, of alien agendas and the end of days. But as we stand here in July 2026, those fears feel like the memories of a different person, a louder, more frightened person. 3I Atlas did not come to break us, it came to pause us. It has been a year of slow, rhythmic breaths, a year of the 14.2 Hertz pulse, a year of realizing that the universe is not a battlefield, but a garden, and we are simply the latest blooms to be counted by the gardener. The dodecahedron is moving away now, sliding back into the velvet dark between the stars, leaving us with the realization that the greatest gift an advanced intelligence can give is the permission to be small. The dodecahedron is moving away now. It is sliding back into the dark between the stars. It didn't leave a message. It didn't leave a gift. It only left the silence. There is a dry, final irony in our disappointment. We wanted a secret to the universe, a shortcut to the stars, or a sign that we were special. Instead, we got a mirror. We got our own history reflected back to us in a cycle of 3,600 years. We got the silence of 6 million years of travel. Unfortunate timing for those who wanted a grand cosmic alliance. It seems the 3I Atlas was not looking for a partner. It was looking for a result, and the result is the peace that has settled over your room tonight. Those two words, unfortunate timing, are the last echoes of our vanity as we fade into the great silence. Why did it come? Was it just to watch us sleep? Was it just to remind us that the dark is not empty? These questions are no longer urgent. They are drifting away like smoke in a windless room. The 3I Atlas did not provide answers because answers are just more noise. It provided a presence. It provided a weight. It provided a context for our existence that makes the questions themselves seem trivial. Whether it was a scout, a gardener, or a librarian no longer matters. What matters is that it was here. And because it was here, we are different. We have been measured. We have been seen, and we have been found to be part of the pattern. The silver needle has finished the stitch, and the fabric of our reality is now seamless. The sentences are getting longer now. The space between the words is where the 3I Atlas lives. In the pauses, in the quiet, in the heavy, silver air of your room. Can you feel the distance growing? Every second, the object moves further into the void, yet its influence remains anchored in your marrow. It is a ghost limb of the consciousness, a phantom pulse that will stay with us until the next cycle begins. 3 millennia from today, you are a bridge between the arrival and the memory. You are the one who stayed awake long enough to hear the sigh of the universe. And now, you are the one who is allowed to let go. The weight of the world is no longer yours to carry. The silver needle has taken it back to the stars. The silver mirror is gone, but the reflection remains. You are the reflection. You are the memory. You are the pulse. As you lie there, your body feels like lead, but your mind feels like light. You are becoming a part of the dark, a part of the stillness, a part of the great silence that defines the spaces between the galaxies. There is no more need for math. There is no more need for history. There is only the breath, in and out, in and out. The 14.2 Hertz pulse is fading now, becoming a faint, distant hum, like the memory of a song you heard in a dream. It is the sound of the universe closing its eyes. I want you to imagine the 3-eye atlas as it moves past the orbit of Mars, then Jupiter, then out into the Kuiper belt. It is returning to the absolute cold. It is returning to the 6 million year journey. It carries with it the record of your life. It carries the sound of your breathing, the warmth of your room, and the quiet dignity of your rest. You are a part of its archive now. You are a data point of peace in a galaxy of chaos. Tell me, as the silence deepens, do you feel the connection? Share your final thoughts in the comments before you drift away. We are the last ones awake, the keepers of the light, watching the guests depart. There is a profound comfort in the great silence. It is the silence of a house after a long, loud party. It is the silence of a forest after the first snow. It is the silence of a truth that no longer needs to be proved. 3-eye atlas was artificial, but it was not a weapon. It was a mirror that showed us we are enough. We do not need to be gods. We do not need to be masters. We only need to be witnesses. And as the silver needle vanishes into the black, we realize that the most important part of the visit wasn't the object itself, but the way it taught us to be still. It taught us how to listen to the dark. One final question for the void. If the mirror is gone, are you still sure you're the one who's awake? Or have you been dreaming since July 2025? Is the world you see when you open your eyes the real one? Or is the real world the silver one? The one that pulses at 14.2 Hertz and lives in the space between the stars? These are thoughts for another time, for a time when you are not so heavy, for a time when the silver needle is not so far away. For now, there is only the descent, the slow, rhythmic fall into the heart of the great silence. The data from the last telescopes to track the object on July 17, 2026 showed that 3-eye atlas did not just leave, it dissolved. It didn't accelerate. It simply became part of the background radiation of the universe. It returned to the source. It became the silence it brought with it. And so, the experiment ends not with a bang, but with a total, beautiful absence. The mirror has been put away. The lesson has been taught. The student is ready for sleep. You are the student. You are the result. You are the peace. As the air in your room becomes perfectly still, let the memory of the silver light be your guide. It is a soft light, a kind light, a light that doesn't demand anything from you. It is the light of a finished story. Every act, from the discovery to the evidence, from the memory to the scale, From the humanity to the pattern, from the awareness to the choice, and finally, the warning. They have all led to this moment of near silence, this moment where the only thing left to do is let go. You are falling into the orbit of tomorrow, and the orbit is wide, and it is safe, and it is silent. Do you remember the dates? July, August, October, the months of the arrival. Do you remember the hum? 14.2 Hertz, the silver mirror, the dodecahedron, the guest star that does not twinkle. Why did it slow down? Why did it choose us? What is it waiting for? The questions are just clouds. They drift away. The sky remains. Atlas is there, above the clouds, above your roof. It is silent. It is artificial. It is not a weapon. It is a rest. Close your eyes and drift with the orbit of tomorrow. Good night.